You sound like a Lebanese merchant.
Adam Curry, John C. Dvorak.
It's Sunday, January 6, 2019. This is your award-winning Gimmo Nation Media Assassination, episode 1101.
This is No Agenda.
Foaming at the mouth and broadcasting live from the capital of the Drone Star State here in downtown Austin, Tejas in the Cludio in the morning, everybody. I'm Adam Curry.
And from northern Silicon Valley, where it's raining. It's global warming. I'm John C. Dvorak.
It's Crackpot and Buzzkill in the morning.
Boy, it's raining. Oh, my goodness. What are you going to do in California?
I don't know. I've never seen anything. It's water pouring out of the sky. It's the end. It's a global warming apocalypse.
It's all we know. Since 1849, people have been writing about the hellhole that is California.
Yep.
Nothing new. And we missed the Zephyr? Second.
Only by a split second.
Second show of the year. Already missing the Zephyr.
Well, I hear that Zephyr coming. It's rolling round the bend.
Oh, my God! Woo! Listen to that horn!
I mean, you've inspired people, John. You inspire people. Hello?
Hello?
I said you inspire people, and you were just very quiet.
I was laughing.
Oh.
So who was it with the Johnny Cash voice?
Oh, that's who do you think it is? It is our drunken.
It's Chris.
Yes,
Chris can do that voice.
Man, he did a whole end of show song for us.
Wow.
And let's see, Matt did this one.
John C. Dvorak tells us the status of the Zephyr.
You know, long after we are gone, these songs will still be floating around the internet.
And they won't figure. No one will know why.
Be like, wow, man, 2019. Back in the day, those guys were weird.
Or weirdos.
And what is this Zephyr they keep talking about? Come on, let's get back in my flying car.
Yeah, that'll be the day.
Yes. Before we start, we have travel advisories from the United States State Department. Issues travel warning for Americans going to China. Be careful. But also, travel advisory for Italy. Terror advisory, no less.
Oh, yeah?
Terrorist groups continue plotting possible attacks in Italy. Terrorists may attack with little or no warning. That's kind of how it works.
There was a massive terror attack in Italy that affected the tourists.
I think I sent this to Willow, who lives in Florence, outside Fiesole, outside of Florence, and she said, this is because of our a-hole government. They're putting fear into everybody, and somehow that's trickling up or through or whatever. That's what she said. She says this makes no sense.
Doesn't make sense at all.
But I do like how the State Department formulates it. Terrorists may attack with little or no warning. Really? This is a revelation.
Yeah, I've always thought that they gave lots of warning, told people what the neighborhood was going to be, and when they were going to attack, how they were going to attack, and what day.
They may be targeting tourist locations, transportation hubs, markets or shopping malls, local government facilities, hotels, clubs, restaurants, places of worship, parks, major sporting and cultural events, educational institutions, airports, and other public areas.
When was the last time in Italy that any of those places were targeted by terrorists?
I don't know.
Never?
Well, they've had stuff go on in Italy. They've had problems.
That's usually, they haven't blown up a church. Places of worship. Yeah, maybe a mosque.
Yeah, well, that's also a place of worship.
Yeah, well, I mean that would be a target for some of the terrorists who hate the other sect. But I'm not buying it.
Well, I found this weekend to be a little tougher even than Christmas, as people still really weren't quite back, and there was.
Well, I think there's a lot of people on furlough, and I went to the post office to get the mail. There's like 5 pieces there instead of the usual 10 or 15.
Oh, so we're suffering again.
Yes,
checks.
And but I mean, it comes eventually.
Let me just get this right. So the furlough, or the partial shutdown, as it's called, is hurting the show directly.
Yeah, I think so, because there are people that listen to this show that donate.
Yep.
they get a check.
In
and
fact,
they take a piece.
we
they
probably
donate
have,
when they,
we probably have more government listeners than we realize.
probably, and probably more of them not donating than we realize. I don't know. It probably is a little bit, but I don't think it's just the direct connection. I think a lot of it's just the overall connection because of the slow down of everything, and they're trying to snap out of the holiday season and all that sort of thing.
Right. DC girl who would know says payroll goes in on the 9th and payday is or is not the 11th. So that's when that's the real date when it starts to get difficult for people. I must say,
well, Trump says it could go on for years.
That's not exactly what he said. I watched his Rose Garden appearance, which I thought was one of his better appearances. He was very calm. He was reasonably coherent. He didn't have a lot of the hey world thing, but me. Bleh. He didn't have a lot of that. Took questions. Did another one of those fun. Hey, should I keep asking you? You got more questions? Should I keep this going a little bit? You guys like it? He even threw a question to what's her name from the Black Radio Network.
I have no idea.
Not Anna Navarro, but the other one. You know what I'm talking about. Yes, you do. Oh, it's just happening more often.
What,
to me.
Joy? Joy
No, she's MSNBC. No, from the April Ryan.
Oh God, the worst.
Yes, and she had an okay question, and he said, "Oh, good question." He was it was like he was happy. Everyone was nice, and he was although as I'm watching it, I'm thinking in my head, he's bringing in. So first of all, we just kind of changed the wall to it can be steel. It's American steel.
Barrier,
but steel. So it'd be good for American companies. Okay, interesting. And then he brings DACA back in. He literally said, I want people to come in and have a pathway to citizenship. We need the people. He said all these things. And I'm thinking, maybe this wall, maybe this 5.6 billion, 5 billion is just kind of maybe he's going for a full immigration deal.
Who knows?
It just kind of hit me like, is this guy going for something bigger?
No one's going to analyze it correctly, whatever he's up to.
He, in his Rose Garden statement, he did make it very clear he has his fallback position.
Please? Yes, indeed.
Go ahead.
So, first,
let me know when you get tired.
I'm not. Have you considered using emergency powers to grant yourself authorities to build this wall without congressional approval? And second,
Yes,
on
I have.
Mexico, you have.
Yes, I have. And I can do it if I want.
So you don't need congressional approval to build the wall?
No, we can use them. Absolutely. We can call a national emergency because of the security of our country. Absolutely. No, we can do it. I haven't done it. I may do it. But we can call a national emergency and build it very quickly. And it's another way of doing it. But if we can do it through a negotiated process, we're giving that a shot.
So is that a threat hanging over the Democrats?
I never threaten anybody.
Yeah. All right. He only promises.
Since when?
But the best part, and if I had a beverage in my between my lips, it would have been spewing throughout the common law condo. And it kind of fits in with this Trump, the stock whisperer, because whenever he says, "Oh, well, you might want to buy," I don't know. I think it was just a glitch in the system. It's the market went up 1,000 points. The trading day after he said that. Do you recall he was saying he was pissed off about the price of oil?
He's done that a number of times.
Well, he addressed this specifically in his Rose Garden speech.
No. All of this stuff is changing now. This is a fair deal. This is a good deal for Mexico. Frankly, oil companies and other companies have an incentive now to go to Mexico and take oil out. And that's why we're keeping gasoline prices so low. You look at what's going on with gasoline prices. I mean, it's rather incredible. If you look back 4 months ago, oil hit $83 a barrel. 83. It was heading to 100, and then it could have gone to 125. You want to see problems? Let that happen. After I made some phone calls to OPEC and the OPEC nations, which is essentially a monopoly, all of a sudden it started coming down. I'm very happy with what's happened, and I'm very happy that people are paying a lot less in many cases than $2 a gallon for Gasoline. You look at what's happening. Everyone's talking about it. Didn't happen by luck. It happened through talent.
Talent, man. That's talent. And I believe it in this case. I totally believe that. I believe whatever talent he has, he pulled it together and said, hey. This whole Khashoggi thing, let's start by lowering the price. Let's bring that down a bit. You guys are pissing me off. I just thought it was funny. Talent. I got to learn how to say that myself. That show isn't just good because. It's because talent.
Yeah. It's hard to pull off. He does it in the way he does it. It's like, it's like a kicker. At the end of a
at the end of a no agenda clip is that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, that was a good clip. I didn't hear that.
It was very, very funny. Did you have any wall clips? Do you have anything? I got a couple related.
I'm getting wall clips. It's just like I thought the wall was tedious. Morehouse action.
Well, here I
got nothing.
So he started this. On I guess Friday, and did his first ever appearance in the briefing room. First ever appearance in the briefing room. Oh,
by the way, I want to point something out. This was, I think I may have a clip about that, but this was pointed out by this is more important than anything that these networks and Democracy Now! And the rest of them all the same. It's like, oh my God, it was the first appearance ever. And I'm thinking, I don't believe that's true, but okay, let's say it is. And then they said he just told the press what he wanted to tell them. He says he called a briefing and he told them what he wanted to tell them, and then he didn't take any questions. What kind of a briefing is that? It's a briefing.
Are you not taking any questions at all?
All right, that was the first briefing room appearance of President Donald Trump. So significant for that factor. However, he did not take questions. I want to discuss this with my panelists.
Let's discuss the questions.
We saw him with members of this union, the National Border Patrol Council, which endorsed him during the campaign. So these are current and retired Border Patrol agents, right? These represent Border Patrol agents. It's not the Border Patrol. It's a union, just to be clear. And he has them behind him, but it's just pulling the spotlight back to the White House and to his point of view, but he didn't even take questions.
No, but it doesn't really explain. I think if the Democrats can make their point, and they probably can with Speaker Pelosi there, they'll just say...
Bill Kristol, this guy has fallen so low to be sitting on the panel discussing whether the president
he
took
had
questions.
To shut his magazine down.
Oh, jeez.
Fine, let's have this. We have a continuing resolution for the Department of Homeland Security for a month. We will debate the border issue. Meanwhile, we have these 6 other agencies of the federal government that you are closing down and holding hostage, and we're willing to pass bipartisan appropriations bills for those. I think it's a very hard argument for Republican senators to resist, as I said before. Donald Trump can resist it by not addressing it, right? It's just, here are these Border Patrol guys, and we need a wall. Thank you.
Yeah. To be clear, this is basically a stunt.
Oh.
I mean, this isn't a briefing. So we thought there was going to...
It's not a last-minute briefing.
That was not a briefing, right? A briefing is questions.
A briefing is questions. You heard it here first.
It's not. That's questions and answers.
That's a briefing is questions. Why are you arguing with Brian? Don't argue with her.
She's the worst.
A briefing is questions. You don't even know who she is. You have no idea.
Am I wrong?
Here's my question regarding this. If so much of the country is really up in arms about this and really wants this wall, which may or may not be true, but
wait, before you go on, I want to stop and read you the definition of the word briefing.
Okay. Does it include questions?
No.
Oh.
A meeting for giving information or instructions. That's 1. 2, the actions of informing or instructing someone. It's nothing to do with questions and answers, press conference, nothing like that. It's a briefing. And everybody, including that clip you have, was up in arms about this.
A last-minute briefing. That was not a briefing, right? A briefing is questions.
Right.
A briefing is questions. Yeah, no. So that's all they could argue about is whether it was a briefing or not. It was really interesting. But I'm thinking, if people really want this, we apparently have the capability in America to mobilize millions of people with pussy hats and, we can get people on the streets and they go down to D.C. How come this doesn't happen for something as incredibly as important as the wall? Why isn't that happening? I see
Why are we getting pussy hats?
That's almost my question. I mean, is it only the left with pussy hats who can organize? Is the right?
Well, the left is the ones who go out in the streets.
Well, why doesn't the right do that? If it's life or death,
when the right does that, and case in point would be the Tea Party. They actually would go out into the street. They tend to be elderly or older.
Yes.
And there are young ones in that group, but then they go on the street with any sort of signs that even reflect the kind of signage that they have on the left. They're called a bunch of Nazis.
And that's why they don't want to go.
Shout it down, so they can't go do anything like that.
But the left are then called Antifa by the right. I mean, you can make an argument both ways.
They call themselves Antifa.
Yeah. You're right. Well, I just think if it's life or death, people would take to the streets. I'd hope they would, but they're not. So you just got to wonder.
When the right, actually, when the conservatives and right, the old farts and everybody else takes to the streets over something, it's not going to be pretty.
Look, this wall issue is about two things. One is just not giving Trump what he campaigned on. That's definitely part of it. And the other
is leverage for 2020.
It's also leverage for a real immigration deal, which includes some pathway to citizenship, which the Democrats desperately want. That's their position. And Trump was talking about this in his speech. He's saying, look, well, first of all, put more money into the regular ports of entry where people are overstaying their visas, which I hope would mean an exit stamp, which is what every country in the modern world has to track if people ever left. And he's talking about pathway to citizenship. I think something much bigger may come out of this. And I don't know who this person is. Sherry Bustos. She's apparently Congresswoman from Democrat for Illinois. Have you ever heard of her? I've never heard of her. Well, she is also the chairperson of the DCCC, and she explains what that is in this clip. And just listening to her, I think there's a lot of room, and I think they may be further down the path than the press wants us to know.
Where is the room for a deal?
Well, the room for a deal is that there's got to be some give and take. I worked in the private sector my entire career before coming to Congress. In fact, I was a journalist for almost 20 years, almost decades.
Why don't we know her if she was a journalist for 20 years? This is bugging me. Well, I'll look it up.
And then worked in healthcare for another 10 years. But as you know, when you're not on camera, when you're working with your producers and your photographers and all of that, you got to have a little give and take. And if we are unwilling to do that, we will not improve the way this place, I'm standing in the U.S. Capitol right now, we will not improve the way Congress functions. And, if it were up to me, I would go into a room, I'd lock the door and say, we're not going to leave until we open up the government again. It is not that hard. And I think one other point worth making, the wall that President Trump has talked about now for many years, because this was a defining theme when he was a candidate, it is nothing more than a symbol if you look at it from this perspective. If we have a partial wall, if we have fencing, if we have technology used to keep our border safe, all of that is fine, but it has just become this symbol that the president is not having any give or take when it comes to this $5 billion.
So you said there needs to be give and take, and then you said that you are supportive or at least open to the idea of a partial wall fencing technology. Is that the give here? Are you willing to give some additional funding beyond the $1.3 billion for a partial wall fence?
Now, I hadn't even heard this $1.3 billion number yet.
That's Schumer's number.
He said that's what he would be willing to give for the wall or fencing?
No, none of it was for the wall. It was for border security.
No, okay.
Fencing or technology.
Well, keep in mind, I'm not sitting at that table doing the negotiating. I mean, I'm running the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. It means I have a seat at the leadership table.
But you have a vote in Congress, and you are a member of Democratic leadership, and people are, you got 4 votes for Speaker, and I don't mean to diminish that. People listen here. So.
Hey, what is this 4 votes for Speaker?
15 members of the House refused to vote for Nancy Pelosi, and the votes got scattered around.
I got it. Thank you.
So are you saying that that is where you believe Democrats should give?
I believe that when we are looking at many issues, whether it pertains to rebuilding our country and passing what I hope will end up being $1 trillion infrastructure package to rebuild our roads and bridges and water.
How about that? What if we fold it into the infrastructure bill?
Well, there's sure a lot of wiggle room with $1 trillion budget.
Well, she's talking. Why does she bring that up in relationship to this?
Ways in rural broadband, or whether it has to do with lowering the cost of health care, including the exorbitant prices of prescription drugs. Whatever it is, what I'm saying is we can have a starting point that we go in there and we say, this is ideally what we would like to see happen. But in the end, we might have to give or take a little bit. It's just the way the world works. It's the way our families work. I'm a mother of...
Yeah, blah, blah, blah. I think there's room there, and she's signaling this.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not saying she's not. She's not, but it's Pelosi's the one who really calls the shots.
She worked at the Quad Cities Times as the night shift police reporter.
Wow, that's a gig.
And she actually got a master's in journalism from University of Illinois to get the gig.
Yeah. Well, that in those days, I don't know how old she is, but in the olden days, you'd come out of
she's
college.
57.
Yeah, you come out of college and if you had any journalism chops, whether you were the editor of the school paper or you were taking journalism courses, you'd get offered these sorts of gigs around the country when they had real newspapers. And there was always starting off as always some cop beat. You work with the police department, and that's actually kind of made the reporters a little more street savvy because they actually were out there.
Yeah, they getting some real information.
Yeah. Those days are over.
Oh yeah. All righty. I think we're done with the wall. I just thought it was interesting that how it just seems like something's going on. I think we will get to something.
Something better be going on.
Well, it has to. Yeah.
Well, they talk about this a little bit on Democracy Now! Let me give you an example. Here's Amy Goodman's going to talk about. They're going to talk very detailed information about the wall and some of the things that went on that are going on in the various administrations. Let's play this. This is Amy regarding shutdown.
As the government shutdown moves into its 14th day, with 800,000 federal workers either being forced to work without pay or on furlough, and they won't be paid. We go now to Capitol Hill, where we're joined by Democrats.
What do you mean, not true?
They give everybody back pay for being put on furlough. That's why a lot of them like going on furlough.
And then why is she lying to us?
I'm wondering myself, because I think she knows the reality of it. There must be somebody that's not going to get paid. I'm not sure what the point of that comment was. But
and they won't be paid. We go now to Capitol Hill, where we're joined by Democratic Congressmember Judy Chu of California. She's the chair of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus. Congressmember Chu is also a member of the Committee on Ways and Means, along with Democratic Senator Jeff Merkley of Oregon. She's introduced the Shutdown Child Prison Camps Act. Her recent piece for the Pasadena.
I want you to get your pencil, because there's going to be so many details about her.
This is already interesting. The title of this act, yeah.
Well, now you're going to hear all the really important stuff. So really start writing down notes.
Star News is headlined, "Shut Down Trump's Child Prison Camp." Congressmember Judy Chu, welcome to
Shut down Trump's child prison camp? Is that seriously what I just heard?
Yeah.
Hold on. I got to back it up for the title of that act. Hold on.
Piece for the Pasadena Star News is headlined, "Shut Down Trump's Child Prison Camp." Congressmember Judy Chu, welcome to Democracy Now! Congratulations on your swearing in yesterday, along with the most diverse Congress in U.S. history. Your thoughts being in that room and the comparison of the diversity in color, religion, ethnicity, sexual identity on the part of the Democrats versus the Republicans.
Oh, it was just so incredibly exciting to be there with the now majority in Congress. You could see the stark difference just when you entered the room as the proceedings started. And that is on the left side of the room where the Democrats sit. There was tremendous diversity. We have a record number of women in Congress. Now there are over 100 women in Congress, but most of them are on the Democratic side. But there is also tremendous diversity. We have the greatest number of Latinos, African Americans, and let me also say we have the greatest number of Asian Pacific Islanders elected to Congress now. We have gone from 18 to now 20 Asian Pacific Islander members of Congress. But it is so exciting that we have now the first 2 Native American women in Congress and the first 2 Muslim American women in Congress.
Right. United Colors of Benetton. It's beautiful.
Hey. Well, where's this information? What are they talking about? Just sitting there patting herself on the back?
Yeah.
Oh, we got all these women, and I look over the aisle, and there's a bunch of more women, and look at all these people we elected. It's not talking about qualifications or whether any of them are any good. They haven't even been in office for 10 minutes, but they're just all backhand. Hey, wow, backslapping. This is great.
Well,
this is useless.
No, if you look at how the Democratic Party runs and what issues they run on, it's diversity. And they said we're going to make it more diverse, and they did. They didn't say they were going to get anyone right for the job, and they may very well be. I don't know. But they said they were going for diversity. They delivered on their promise.
Let's go with part 2.
The first day was to be able to change the rules so that we have greater transparency in Congress, and it was also to pass bills that would end the government shutdown. On the rules issue, yes, unfortunately, since the last few Congresses, since Republicans took over, we have had a lack of transparency. So our whole goal was to change it so that, for instance, we could have a bill 72 hours before it's voted upon so we can actually read it and contemplate.
Oh, yeah. We'll hold you to that one. Don't worry.
Hold on a second.
What?
This woman, wasn't this Obama's promise when he first became president? Oh, and it's going to be, everything's going to be on C-SPAN, and you're going to be able to read the bills and all the rest of it?
Yeah, that didn't work either.
And wasn't Nancy Pelosi the one that says, we got to pass this bill so you can read it to see what it says?
Yes, that's correct. That's
These
why
are
I'm
all
laughing.
Democrats. I don't get it.
That's why I'm laughing.
I'm not understanding what she's telling. In other words, is she just full of crap like the rest of them with this nonsense?
No. They put out a bill 72 hours in advance before they even bring it to the floor. And in fact, I'll read from it in a minute. So they did that. They're working on it. They're getting better.
So that we can have an end to these conflict of interest. So, for instance, members of Congress cannot be on corporate boards, and also so that we can have greater diversity amongst our members.
No, diversity, not diversity. Diversity.
Now, I want to mention something here. Of course, that board thing. They're not talking about the real conflict of interest stuff, which is the fact that Congress
stock trades
can do stock trades based on what the legislation is going to be in advance.
Legally, and they have to report it. It's available only in the basement of the Library of Congress. Not kidding. No copies can be made and leave the premises. No electronic equipment. You have to bring pencil. Yeah. Or a great memory.
Have greater diversity.
So wait. So they let that slide, but they talk about this board member thing, knowing full well that none of these diversity folk or anybody on
on any boards
are on any boards except maybe some public, some Soros boards, which don't count. They're talking about corporate boards of money making companies.
The Soros
that only applies to one half of Congress.
So they can still be on a board of a big NGO.
Well, I'm pretty sure that's true. I'm not.
I'll look into that. That's interesting. That's interesting.
If that can be shown, then you can see that this is just a bigoted, anti-business kind of thing.
Let's hear the word diversity.
By the way, I don't think these Congress guys should be on boards of corporations.
Of course not.
But if you're going to start limiting things, you better limit it evenly.
Yes. Get some diversity.
We can have greater diversity.
I nailed it.
Amongst our members, allowing religious headgear on the floor. So those were our rules.
I've never religious headgear. Always reminds me of the braces I had with the headgear. I hated those things. Had to wear them to school. Had to do 3 notches on the right, 2 notches on the left. That's headgear.
On the floor. So those were our rules packages, but the most important thing was that we do not continue the suffering of these federal workers, these 800,000 federal workers who either will not be paid or will be paid later and do not have a paycheck now.
You want to hear a bit from the bill that they brought out before they bring it to the floor? The 72-hour bill?
Yeah.
It's from Sarbanes. Put it in, Sarbanes from Sarbanes-Oxley.
Sarbanes-Oxley, one of the worst laws in effect ever.
So he put out the For the People Act of 2019. Producer Todd caught this and pulled out a couple of things. This is to, more transparency, rectify the elections, get our electoral system in order, and a couple of points. Page 39, the voting age shall be lowered to 16. Makes sense. Any citizen will be able to request a My Voice voucher worth $25. So this is a voucher you get to even out money in politics, and you can spend that $25. It's federal money. You can spend that $25 on any party or individual you want. Colleges can automatically register students to vote, but are not required to ask if they are U.S. citizens, according to the bill. There's a number of triggers for automatic voter registration. Non-citizens who are registered to vote cannot be charged with a crime unless they knew they were violating the crime. So it's a get-out-of-jail-free card there. Within 6 months of an election, people cannot use the cross-state registration database to find people who are registered to vote in more than one state.
What?
I know. Because that's voter suppression. That's a Republican tactic, you see. To find corruption is right-wing craziness.
Oh, my God. That's unbelievable.
Voting rights will be restored to convicted criminals as long as they are not in jail on Election Day. And all states must allow early voting, and polling locations must be moved within walking distance of bus stops.
Now, let's back up. This is in that bill that's supposed to...
the For the People Act.
For the People Act.
Yeah. It's pretty good, right?
Yeah, it's a scam as usual.
Yeah. Well.
Slipping one by.
But...
So what does the media say about this? They must have read this over and said this. Notice these anomalies.
I have a clip right here. If you know what I mean. Yeah, of course they don't say anything about that. Come on, you know the answers.
It's just shameless. Well, thanks to our producer for digging that up. That's what we do on this show.
Yeah, and I put the whole PDF in the show notes, nashownotes.com. You can go find it there. But it's by the way, from the future time, for if we can just deviate, or do you have more on then stop.
On the diversity?
Do you have any diversity or on the 2020?
No, go on.
Let me see if I have any on 2020. Hold on, before we do anything. Yes. I have, so who do we still have running? The 3 Bs. Beto, Biden, and Bingo. Who's the third? B. Beto, Biden.
Bernie.
We have Kamala Harris. And I think that CNN has really decided to cut Biden out of the 3 Bs. And they brought in Sally Cohn, everybody's favorite, to take him down and let everyone know that, Sally Cohn, besides being a journalist, I think she's good, although incredibly biased. I think she has ties to the Democrats that are deeper than the surface may show. I always think she has inside info. So here's Sally Cohn.
Let's turn the page. And I know it's so early, but Senator Dianne Feinstein says she would back Joe Biden if he ran in 2020. Have you guys heard this? And not only is it interesting, Sally, to you that she'd say something like this so early, but also just keeping in mind Senator Kamala Harris is her fellow California senator. What do you think?
Good honor, but I'm going to have to respectfully disagree. Look,
when someone says, I want to respectfully disagree, what do they say that?
Oh, well, that's a good question to analyze because
people say it a lot. Listen, I respectfully, I disagree.
I think it's haughty. I think it has bad connotations. I think it means you think the person's
full of
jerk.
shit. Yeah, I think you don't want to say it like, "Hey, you're so stupid. You're so wrong." But I'm going to tell you how it is. I think you're right. That's kind of what it means.
I mean, good on her, but I'm going to have to.
There's another one.
Good on her.
Good on her.
What
does that even mean?
I'm hearing, having grown up in Europe, growing up with the Germanic languages, I'm hearing. And sentence structure, certainly between Dutch or German and English, everything is reversed. So instead of saying, "What do you say?" you literally say, "What say you?" And I'm hearing this coming up now. What say you? In certain circumstances, people will use this. And to say, "Good on you," it's goed voor jou. It's like a Germanic thing that's coming in. It's very odd to me where I hear these sentence structures that are different from the traditional English usage.
Good on you. Good on her.
Good on her.
If you don't say it with the right intonation, it sounds stupid. Like, "Oh, well, good on her."
Yeah, that sounds nasty. Yeah.
It doesn't sound right.
No.
I mean, good on her, but I'm going to have to respectfully disagree. Look.
I think it's the prelude to F you.
Joe Biden has name recognition. People like him. And in fairness, he's the most sort of populist seeming of a long legacy of centrist corporate Democrats, right? He talked tough. He's from Scranton. He talks about that all the time. And so he sort of seemed like the most popular, bearing in mind he's from the great banking state of Delaware. But he kind of, he earned that reputation. But in fairness, the country never
twice.
Really should have had corporate centrist Democrats, but certainly in this moment, that is so tone deaf and out of step, not only with what the country needs, but with what the American people across the aisle want. And it turns out we are a fundamentally more progressive, inclusive, populist country that wants things like higher taxes on the rich and solutions to climate change and corporations and big business to be held accountable. And we need Democratic candidates who, I don't know, actually side with the majority of Americans, not to mention the majority of Democrats, as opposed to siding with big business and Wall Street.
So Uncle Joe just got shoved into Wall Street. Way to go, Sal.
Hey, look, you can sit next to Hillary. She's there already.
She runs a think tank that she founded, Sally. She's only sometimes a commentator. I didn't realize
she's definitely a stooge for the Democrats.
Oh, yeah. She's totally locked in.
Democrats.
Now, she mentioned the higher taxes, and I'm going to bring it right back to what I said earlier. AOC, I'm surprised.
I have the AOC clip.
Yeah, I have it too.
Oh, okay.
Let me see. How long is your clip? Yours is, you have 142. We're going with your clip.
You're talking about zero carbon emissions, no use of fossil fuels within 12 years?
That is the goal. It's ambitious. And
how is that possible? You're talking about everybody having to drive an electric car?
It's going to require a lot of rapid change that we don't even conceive as possible right now. What is the problem with trying to push our technological capacities to the furthest extent possible?
This would require raising taxes.
There's an element where, people are going to have to start paying their fair share in taxes.
Do you have a specific on the tax rate?
You look at our tax rates back in the 60s, and when you have a progressive tax rate system, your tax rate, let's say from $0 to $75,000 may be 10% or 15%, et cetera. But once you get to like the Tippie-Tops, on your $10 millionth dollar, sometimes you see tax rates as high as 60 or 70%. That doesn't mean all $10 million are taxed at an extremely high rate, but it means that as you climb up this ladder, you should be contributing more.
What you are talking about, just big picture, is a radical agenda compared to the way politics is done right now.
Well, I think that it only has ever been radicals that have changed this country. Abraham Lincoln made the radical decision to sign the Emancipation Proclamation. Franklin Delano Roosevelt made the radical decision to embark on establishing programs like Social Security. That is radical.
Do you call yourself a radical?
Yeah, if that's what radical means, call me a radical.
I really like this girl. She is going places. I know you think she's stupid.
Fry gets to me. I don't like her in the least. I do think she's stupid, and she's an idealist and a goofball. I think she's something of a goofball. I just do not see what you. I know what you're thinking. Did he shoot 6 shots or only 5? Oh, I'm sorry. No, it's a different script.
But no, I'm going on record as pro AOC. I think she could do things that I like. Listen, I have some things to say about this. First of all, what happened to the actual Green New Deal? Black on white, her own paper says we're going to print the money. We're going to print the money for this Green New Deal, which we only have 12 years to do, really only 10 before we die. Children know it. That you ask any child, particularly if they just got into college, what's happening with climate change, we're going to die. So let's just bear that in mind. Children believe this. She believes this, I think.
I think so.
She said it was going to be done by printing up money just the way we did the bailout in 2008. So she's changed. This is the question Pooper should have asked. Instead, she brings up the progressive tax system, which we've had all my life. And yes, it's even today. If you make X amount, you pay only so much over the first $25,000, $50,000. I don't know exactly what the brackets are. And then you get into the Tippie-Top, as she calls it.
Tippie-Top.
Which is, Scott Adams would say, persuasive. Gets into the Tippie-Top, and that's where you may wind up paying more. And I went back and I looked throughout the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s, up until 1981, the Tippie-Top tax rate in the United States was over 70%. So it's not crazy.
But go back into that era, and the Tippie-Top tax rate at 71% did exist, but there were a million ways to lower your tax liability through all kinds of R&D deals and certain kinds of investments and write-offs this way and write-offs that way. And very few people that made that kind of money, that made the 10 million plus a year, ever paid those tax rates because they had been putting the money here and putting the money there. These were called the loopholes that were closed. And once they started closing the loopholes, then they had to start lowering the tax rates because it was a 1-to-1 ratio. So this is really misconstrued. This is a specious commentary that she's making. It's bullshit.
That may be true. The only thing I'm saying is it's not crazy to have that upper tax rate in a progressive system, and people shouldn't immediately be, However, more importantly, if that's all it would take to get the Green New Deal going, to save our lives, I expect every person who is a Democratic voter or a Democratic operative or politician to agree to this idea. To save the world. I bet we won't, but it's not. I'd like to see her push it through.
You really think that people like Nancy Pelosi and the real movers and shakers in the party buy into any of the "we're all going to die" nonsense?
No, but of course not. But that's how I can make my point. If they don't buy into it, if they don't say, "Hey, okay, make it 60%, make it an even 50." Whatever you're going to do. That's the way we typically do things with raising money. If it truly is the most important thing in the world, because we're all going to die, then they should all be pushing for it. They won't, because it's not true. We're not going to die. My point is about the science of climate change and the hood that's been pulled over everybody's eyes. So
not everybody.
No, but the people who are advocating for this.
The suckers.
The people who are advocating for we're all going to die, climate change, don't deny science is in. They should be all in on at least this idea.
I agree. And I think a lot of them are.
We'll see. I bet not a single one of them supports this idea. Not a single one.
A single one of who? The Congress members?
Yes. The Democrats who say we're going to die from climate change. Them, yes.
Oh, well, maybe.
By the way,
I think there's more than a single. I think there's a few.
This was all predicted.
Mostly the newbies that just came in.
Did you see the article that now the orbit of the Earth is changing slightly, and therefore
going to spin out?
And therefore climate change, it may end by itself or not.
Oh, no, they're looking for the out. They're looking for their exit strategy for the bullshit.
Listen to this.
Crap.
So this actually appeared in 1961, November 17th, in an episode of The Twilight Zone.
The word that Mrs. Bronson is unable to put into the hot, still, sodden air is doomed. Because the people you've just seen have been handed a death sentence. 1 month ago, the Earth suddenly changed its elliptical orbit, and in doing so began to follow a path which gradually, moment by moment, day by day, took it closer to the sun. And all of man's little devices to stir up the air are no longer luxuries. They happen to be pitiful and panicky keys to survival. The time is 5 minutes to 12, midnight. There is no more darkness. The place is New York City, and this is the eve of the end. Because even at midnight, it's high noon, the hottest day in history, and you're about to spend it in the Twilight Zone.
So that's the setup, but in the show itself, this is what happens.
There was a scientist on the radio this morning. He was trying to explain what happened, how the Earth had changed its orbit and was starting to move away from the sun, and that within 1, 2, or maybe 3 weeks at the most, there wouldn't be any more sun. We'd all freeze.
Nothing ever changes. Nothing. Same script.
You remember that episode. It's pretty funny.
You remember it? Oh, that's great.
Let's go back to 1988 for the upcoming election.
Hold on. 1988. Hello, John.
Hello. Yeah, I was having trouble with my segue, obviously.
Yes.
It ran off a hill. Gore is running. He's one of the main candidates. This is the election against George H.W. Bush, the first time right after Reagan's 8 years. And so we have a few things here, including let's just play these two Gore clips from 1988, just pre-election, so just before the election, when he was one of the 5 candidates. Dukakis won this thing. He didn't. But he had a few things to say that he's kind of stuck with. But I see that he's kind of edited down his complaints. Let's start with Gore Freon.
The other 5 candidates in the race. And later in the campaign, I'll be doing the same thing on domestic issues.
You give us a clue where the difference are. You've heard these guys, and we all have, for about 6 months. You know what you believe for the last 10 years. So where do you think the differences are going to be? Is education, social programs?
Well, I think there are going to be some differences in education, in environmental protection. And in a number of other issue areas. I'm the only candidate talking about the need for a completely new approach to environmental protection, as an example. I'm chairman of the largest environmental protection group in the Congress. I chaired the first hearings ever held on the problem of hazardous chemical waste and pollution of groundwater some 10 years ago. I was one of the principal authors of the Superfund law. I've been active in issues from clean air and clean water to protection of the upper atmosphere and the rainforests and ocean pollution, management of public lands. And the positions I've articulated are, I'll give you an example.
Did he at any point mention that he invented the Internet?
He invented the Internet later.
Oh.
When I announced my candidacy, I talked about the threat to the ozone layer, among many, many other issues. And some of the other campaigns said, sort of hooted at that and said this is really a kind of an unusual issue that the voters will not respond to. I find a tremendous response from the voters. I find Americans all over this country actively concerned about the impact of our civilization on the global environment. And the next president must not only understand that impact, but must be prepared to offer strong, innovative leadership nationally and internationally to stop that damage. The recent treaty, incidentally, on the ozone depletion accomplishes a 35% reduction in the production of these chemicals called chlorofluorocarbons, or CFCs.
Oh, yeah.
And yet the evidence shows that there must be an 85% reduction just to stabilize the amount of damage being done. In other words, under this treaty, the damage will not only continue, it will accelerate fairly dramatically throughout the balance of this century. That's unacceptable. Now, there may be some market developments that help us deal with the problem, and the treaty may accelerate those market trends.
Well, this was his whole thesis for running for anything, is to scare the crap out of the public, have these assertions like by the year 2000, apparently, according to him, the hole was going to get bigger when it got smaller and all this sort of thing. But the next one, which is the second clip, has an assertion with an actual time and date. Well, that it should be noted.
let me
it's
guess. Okay. Yeah.
Because he says it. And I do the calculation, and it didn't happen.
But there are many other challenges. Climate change is an issue that, again, is out in front of the domestic consensus on what the agenda of the next president ought to be. But the next president needs to provide leadership there as well. Destruction of the rainforest. We're losing rainforests in the world today at the rate of 1 Tennessee's worth every year, an amount of land equivalent to the size of the state of Tennessee every single year. By the year 2010, it'll all be gone.
What? It's gone.
Gone.
It's gone. Is it gone? Did you check?
It's not. Yeah, I did check.
Is it gone?
It's not gone.
Oh, my.
It looks as if it's not even close to being gone. You can look up, rainforests on the Wikipedia, and you can see them all. They're still there.
It's just not gone.
But according to him,
it's not
they
gone.
were going to be gone by 2010.
All right, let's come back. Oof. It's better back here. A couple of things we've talked about that are coming true. Yes, that are panning out. A while back, we identified that the excessive use of cuss words amongst leftists, liberals, Democrats was increasing. And this increase signaled something to me. It signaled a severe frustration, and I said it's only going to get worse. You're hearing it on podcasts everywhere. People who would never use any kind of profanity are using the F word excessively. Now, I have Tourette's, so you got to give me a little slack. You actually have used some... You use the S word today. You rarely even do that. Now, I'm saying
that was the BS word.
Yeah, I'm not even saying that you're a leftist, but it came true. I mean, this is a break in the psychology, in the psyche of people who typically are left, but who hate Trump.
People love you, and you win. Woo! And when your son looks at you and says, "Mama, look, you won," bullies don't win. And I said, "Baby, they don't, because we're going to go in there, we're going to impeach the motherfucker."
And listen to the cheering.
Yeah, the cheering.
Woo! You said MF. Woo! Woohoo!
This
it's just getting worse.
This was an example, but I think a lot of it has to do with education too. People that are typical truck drivers, people would really know.
This woman's not a truck driver.
Vocabulary that's big enough to handle just not using F.
But this woman's not a truck driver. And by the way, truck drivers aren't stupid. They have vocabulary.
No, but they don't. A lot of truck drivers get into a milieu. I'm sorry.
Okay, milieu is all right. That's more fair. Yes.
The milieu of certain working classes involves a lot of cussing. This woman, to me, is this is an important, especially the way it was handled. This is an important situation because this can't be tolerated by Nancy Pelosi.
Exactly.
If she can't control these new people that are coming in, and she's going to have to take them one by one, she's going to have a mess on her hands.
I think it's too late.
That they're sorry.
I think it's already done. They brought in all the diversity, and that's the mess.
Yeah, diversity is the mess.
Yeah.
Whether Nancy can organize it at her age, not to be an ageist, already insulted our truck drivers. I don't think she can do it. I think the whole Democrat Party is going to fall apart. It's going to be an embarrassment. As those sorts of things that woman did. She's a Muslim, by the way, from Michigan. I think she's the Michigan woman. That is going to really turn off the American public insofar as Democrats are concerned.
I agree. You're right. I think it is signaling something that's a much bigger problem. Totally agree.
I have a clip. Here it is. This is diversity and Pelosi regains gavel. This is from Democracy Now! It discusses a little bit of this.
Incoming members of the 116th Congress made history Thursday as the most diverse group of lawmakers ever sworn in. Over 100 women now serve in the House, along with the most LGBTQ Black and Latino members in history. Meanwhile, Democratic Congressmember Nancy Pelosi of California was officially elected Speaker of the House again, regaining the gavel she lost after the 2010 midterm elections brought 8 years of Republican control to the House.
Our nation is at an historic moment. 2 months ago, the American people spoke and demanded a new dawn. They called upon the beauty of our Constitution, our system of checks and balances that protects our democracy, remembering that the legislative branch is Article 1, the first branch of government, co-equal to the presidency and to the judiciary.
15 Democrats, including some freshman lawmakers, defected against Pelosi's speakership, either voting for an alternative candidate or simply voting present. As a first order of business, House Speaker Pelosi and House Democratic leaders sought to end the partial government shutdown, passing a package of spending bills that would reopen the federal government without meeting Trump's demand for $5 billion for expanding the wall on the U.S.-Mexico border.
So Pelosi's she has some defectors, which is she'll punish those 15. But she's also going to punish the few that threatened to not vote for her, but did. They voted for her anyway, but they're all marked. They'll all be on the the Commerce Committee for Sewage Treatment.
They're marked.
And these some of the worst, farm animals.
She was also kind of sloshing her words a bit.
I think she's got
denture. Sounds like denture. Hey, listen to this. Listen to this.
Thank you for your courage.
Yay.
Courage. She's got some serious. Yeah, she's got to have some refitting.
Refitting, yes, retooling, maybe.
I got a dub flub on you. Tell me if you can spot the Amy. Hey, this is actually a double flub.
Okay.
See if you can spot both of them. This is about the Google story where, Google apparently is dodging taxes. Big shocker. But listen, see if you can find the two double flubs. And they're not necessarily mispronouncing things. It's what she says.
Newly revealed tax filings show Google shifted $23 billion to accounts in Bermuda in 2017 as part of a complex tax avoidance scheme that saved the tech giant billions of dollars in revenue. The scheme involved funneling money through Google Ireland Holdings and a Dutch shell company based in Bermuda, where corporations pay no income tax. The scheme, known as the Double Irish Dutch Sandwich, is legal, although Ireland's government has said it will close a loophole allowing the arrangement in 2020.
Okay, first of all, it's a double Dutch. It's never a double Irish. That's just stupidity. And I think she also said it would save the millions in revenue, which is not true.
Yes, that was mistake number one.
Yeah, it's not true.
It's just going to save billions in taxes.
Yes, but not in revenues.
Revenues or whatever. Revenues are revenues. It doesn't save you any revenues.
And the Dutch
just that wrong.
The Dutch just called. They want their other part back. Don't
play the clip again because there's a second one in there, and I forget.
Oh, really? Besides that, there's one? Oh.
Newly revealed tax filings show Google shifted $23 billion to accounts in Bermuda in 2017 as part of a complex tax avoidance scheme that saved the tech giant billions of dollars in revenue. The scheme involved funneling money through Google Ireland Holdings and a Dutch shell company based in Bermuda, where corporations pay no income tax. The scheme, known as the Double Irish Dutch Sandwich, is legal, although Ireland's government has said it will close a loophole allowing the arrangement in 2020.
Allowing the arrangement?
Yeah, that
came out weird. No, it just came out weird.
I may have clipped out the second one.
Okay. Anyway, I have something much more important. From the future, we are.
Yeah, of course.
Wherever Ebola shows up, we always expect the U.S. military to follow. Now, you wouldn't know it from the American news, or dare I say, even any news in the Western world. No, but if we go to Africa today...
The United States has deployed soldiers to Gabon in anticipation of possible violent demonstrations in the Democratic Republic of Congo after its presidential election. U.S. President Donald Trump told Congress on Friday the first batch of about 80 military personnel arrived in Gabon on Wednesday. Their mission will be to protect U.S. citizens and diplomatic facilities should violence break out in DRC's capital, Kinshasa. Trump said additional forces may be deployed to Gabon if necessary.
And notice no mention of Ebola. It's completely off the map. We don't care. We got what we needed. Hey, we get them in one way or the other. Troops in the DRC. Just a matter of time.
How'd you get that? That was a good clip.
Oh, well, Reuters actually reported on it. They did do a news release about the U.S. troops being deployed, but it was not mentioned. I was looking for a clip, and this is all I could find. I found a million clips with some shit music and titles. You know, those.
Those are the worst.
Algo assembled pieces of crap. You're like, oh, I got a clip. No, I don't. So yeah, and then I just went back to the well. Africa today.
I think that the fact that the mainstream news media, including the CNN and MSNBCs of the world, spent all this time about this briefing, the definition of briefing,
instead of something like
they
this.
Let stories like this just slide. Well, who cares?
That's why we're going to be great this year.
You think it's going to get worse?
Oh, the mainstream news, CNN, MSNBC, Fox, all three of them are going to do 2020 all day, all night long. It will be nothing else. It's decided that they're doing it. It's like the MH17. They're just going to go. It's only 2 years. They don't care.
You might be right. I hate to see it because it's going to be incredibly boring. The public doesn't care about 2020. They won't care about 2020 until 2020.
What you're seeing is a total withdrawal. You're seeing a withdrawal. People are just not interested anymore. They're turning off the television. It's only going to go downhill. It's easy to predict this one. Easy. So, now for us, we're just going to deconstruct other news sources. Still, if you go to RT or Sky News, you get different things. At least you can get something from a different country. That seems to be completely impossible.
I've been looking at CBC this week.
We need to take a break, though, before we go into another segment.
Okay.
But we'll be doing CBC News after I thank you for your courage and say in the morning to you, John C., the man who put the C in cussing, Dvorak.
In the morning to you, Mr. Adam Curry. Also in the morning to all the boots on the ground, the feet in the air, the subs, and all the dames and the knights out there.
In the morning to the Troll Room. You can find them and join their legions of trolls at noagendastream.com. And it's good to see everybody there. Aloha. Nice to see you got your troll polls. Also in the morning to Darren O'Neill. He brought us the artwork, the album artwork for episode 1100. This was the Flash Meetup, which we need to hear about. And he had just a nice piece, was a tachometer or a speedometer. It had 33 as the only indicator and 1100 on what would maybe be the odometer. It was just a nice piece, particularly because it was our 1100th episode. And we thank Darren and everyone who submitted artwork and continue to do as a part of our value for value system, where you give back the value that you get out of it. And for a lot of people, they put in their artistry, and we appreciate what they do. NoAgendaArtGenerator.com. Thank you again, Darren O'Neill.
We have a funny situation here that I haven't straightened it out.
Uh-oh.
But there's a Sir Scott and there's a Sir Richard.
Okay.
And I don't believe that it may or may not be the same person, but neither one of them wants to be mentioned except their name, Sir Scott or Sir Richard. At least it says Sir Richard on the note. And both of the numbers were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Well, I don't see Sir Scott on the list.
Well, Sir Scott's the one I've been going back and forth with because of this. Okay, so I've got.
You sound troubled.
What?
You sound troubled.
I am troubled because I have not been able to figure out why. Let me go get the note. Hold on a second.
Okay.
Play a little rambling squirrel mail music.
Okay. Rambling squirrel mail music. I don't know how to do that, man. I need to make that easier to find.
Oh.
Yeah. here we go. Will he find it? He's looking for the donation note. Running over to the printer.
I got it.
Oh, you back already? I got to do the whole song.
It took you longer to get it than it took me to get this note.
Okay.
So this donation is to say thank you for the fine product you deliver twice a week. For myself, a simple jobs karma, the original Pelosi, no Trump. Sir Richard. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yet, Sir Scott, had sent in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it can only match the same exact check, but
I really have no idea what you're talking about.
Wait. Here's the real problem. I'm gonna have to do some more emailing. I see. Okay, now. Thank you.
What is happening?
I get it now. Sir Scott, who is a sir, wanted to be called Sir Richard initially, but then when we went back and forth with the email, because his check was a week late.
Oh, okay.
He forgot about that part because he wanted to be super anonymous. So now he's two guys.
That's pretty anonymous.
Yeah, okay, I got it, because it's the same. I'm saying that it's the same guy, Scott and Richard, because they're both in Louisville, Kentucky.
You weren't listening to Rihanna again, were you?
No, I should have been. Maybe that's the problem. Jeez, this show is a botch for me. But anyway, let's go on. And then we want to thank Sir Scott Richard for his Scott Richard. It's a good name. It's a show business name.
He just wanted Jobs, Nancy Jobs?
Yeah, Nancy Jobs. Yeah.
Jobs, 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 and jobs. Let's vote for jobs.
You've got karma.
Okay, well, at least we figured it out.
Yeah, sure. All right, so we onward. That's it. That's our executive producer.
Oh.
And luckily he came in at all.
Well, but it's nice. We appreciate that Sir Scott Richard thing and such.
Sir Richard Scott.
And
Sir
such.
Richard Scott. What a great name. Sir Richard Scott
and such.
And such.
Yeah, that's his new name. Sir Richard Scott and such.
Name.
Yes.
Robert Warner in Chicago, 23535. I look for a note.
No note. I don't have one either.
Jim Watts, 233.33. This is a test of the no agenda karma system. World Cup luge racing karma needed for human resource number one. Okay, normally we do not do sports
karma
related karmas, but since it's a relative, it's a human resource number one.
Yes,
we can give it a shot.
So Jim's human resource number one is a World Cup luge racer.
Yeah.
Top that. Adam
Carolla. I can't top it.
I mean, any other podcast is what I mean.
Who else? Sure. Oh, yeah. Well, that's
Who
for sure.
else has World Cup luge racers participating in our program? Zero.
Says,
exactly.
I'm not sure if that falls under the jobs banner. Dealer's choice karma, please. So
Ooh. Do you think we should make that a jobs karma?
I think it is a job.
It is a job. I think we're going to go for the job karma for human resource number one. Let's give it a shot.
Jobs, 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 and jobs. Let's vote for jobs.
You've got karma.
All right. Well, let us know how that goes, Jim. Very curious.
Now again, this is not something we encourage. And I think for relatives and looking at it from the jobs perspective, I do think it's possible that this is on the up and up.
You do think?
I do think. I don't think.
You do think.
I don't think it's possible, but I do think that is possible.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
For further humiliating me.
Oh, come on. It's just a show.
Great. Okay, Sir Jeffrey. No, this is another note. No note. I got a Jeffrey guy with his accounting, but it's not this Jeffrey. This is Jeffrey Fields. Let me look up Fields.
I'm not going to do the whole squirrel mail thing again.
No, you don't have. No. You can't find.
I have nothing from Mr. Fields.
Mr. Field, W.C. Fields. No,
I have nothing from him. No.
I have Ellison Fields, Anthony, Tom. No, I got nothing.
Not even close.
So we got nothing.
But we got him as an associate executive producer with $200. We'll take that.
So let's combine our missing Robert Warner and Jeffrey Fields and give them a joint karma.
You got it.
You've got karma.
And that's pretty much it.
Okay. All right. Well, this is our value for value system, and we make it work in a number of ways. First of all, we know how the network cannot be monetized. Ads doesn't work. Ask Laura Ingraham how it works having ads if you want to say whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
Her radio show, she really got kicked off because of advertiser pressure.
Yeah, I think she's on one of the networks that you can't monetize, but she was on one of them.
Well, no, that is a monetized network because that's a closed loop.
Yeah. Well, you can also get kicked off.
Yeah, that's exactly it. The internet is.
What I like about this is what I enjoy about I kind of enjoy watching these things happening, because it's like, the good support from your you've been there, you've been making the network money because they're not putting you up for free, and people like your show. Some people, I guess, I don't know. I've always found the show to be not quite as I like your TV shows better, but. She's making money for him, and there's just a little crack, there's one little complaint. A couple of advertisers bail out, and you kick her out. You throw her out, and the baby with the bathwater.
Sure.
You just kick her out on her butt. She's bouncing on her butt right out the studios. I mean, what kind of operations are these?
Money-making operations?
Standing up for their people.
No, of course not. Why would they? They're money-making operations. Oh, no way. I wouldn't do it either. She'd be gone in a heartbeat if I was running the place.
Well, you're heartless.
No, that's your job as a corporation.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
It's a myth. It doesn't have to be.
Okay. All righty then. How many corporations have you run?
Well, I've actually run a couple, but they're all like me and Mimi. It's a very small corporation.
I've run a public company. You don't care. I didn't like the job very much, I'll be honest, but you don't care. It's just, you can't.
There are plenty of CEOs of big corporations who do care.
Okay.
I know in the information business,
in media, John, hold
on a second.
How can you even say this? You got deplatformed from PC Magazine over one article in your 35-year history with them.
Yeah, I agree with. I know there were douchebags for doing that.
Yeah,
but let me give you an example of how the newspapers used to be run. You start attacking some guy and threatening the newspaper would go after you.
This is not a newspaper.
It's an information outlet, and they could go after the advertisers. That's what Limbaugh's been doing. Every time somebody threatens to pull advertiser from Limbaugh, he sends his ditto heads out to make their lives miserable. That's what you do.
There's a difference between Rush Limbaugh and Laura Ingraham.
Yes,
okay.
well, there's that.
Difference.
This is true.
But here's what I wanted to point out. Besides all that, is that we recognize early on the only way to pull this model off is to open up two things. One, donation amounts, make them, people can personalize them, and also it's the value you determine. It's like if we're worth $5, we're worth $5. Fine, it's perfect. Doesn't matter. So we left that open. We didn't say you have to do this or have to do that. Get whatever you think is valuable. Second thing, we do everything ourselves. You cannot have producers that you hire and put on a payroll because there's not enough money in the value network. I don't think it is for any system, really.
And I'm always stunned by the podcasts that have maybe 3 people taking part.
And credits, a credit roll.
a guy on the board, a producer, a booker. I mean, they maybe have 6-7 people working there, and it's like that is like 5 or 6 too many.
So one of the first things we did early on is we said our audience are not listeners. They're not schlubs just sitting around. They know stuff. We figured it out pretty quickly. So we got every 3-letter agency, certainly in the United States, was sending us information. Like, we listened to you guys. The CDC, I think, was the first.
Yeah,
like, we're laughing about you guys, but you're more right than you're wrong. And here's what we think about X, Y, and Z. So we said, these are our real producers. And the production work they do is the value that it's returning the value they get from the show. They don't have to support us financially. So that worked very well. We also, and I've made incessant this is an OCD thing of mine, is to keep it all contained, all production, that we can just do it ourselves. And I see these networks. I think I sent you this article. This is the WSDG. This is the outfit that builds studios. They, it used to be exclusively recording studios, do a lot of broadcast studios.
Yeah.
And they did the Gimlet Media.
Yeah, studio.
Yeah. In 20,000 square foot Brooklyn facility, dedicating...
there's your overhead.
Dedicating 2,700 square feet to one studio. And they got delete systems so they can, copy edits back and forth between their 12 podcast studios, including a full music recording studio. These guys are insane. Do they? I wish I would just say, "Hey, how did that work out when you guys did it?" Well, it didn't. You can't do this. It doesn't work that way anymore. Oh my goodness! I'll put that in the show notes. You got to see the facility. It's bigger than my apartment.
Yeah, you could move in there.
Significantly bigger than my apartment. I'm in a closet. Well,
I want to mention something. You mentioned how the donation amounts vary so much because it's people can choose their own. We have to remember that we kind of picked up. It was actually again in the early days.
Yes, it was producers.
It was the producers that could come up with these crazy numbers.
Yep.
They would have some number. Then we spend half the show decoding what does this number mean. And I guess it was that's the square root of
it became
pi.
a thing. Yeah, it became a thing.
If you make it a Fibonacci, I mean, what?
Mm-hmm. It's important to people, so don't be so stringent. Anyway, what I'm saying is, for those of you who've been with us for 11 years, you've been with us for 11 minutes. Thank you. You clearly understand how it works, and we really appreciate the value you return to us because we can keep doing it this way. And we're not spending it on 2,700 square foot studios in a 20,000 square foot Brooklyn facility. And that's all VC money. They're not making enough to sustain that. They're not making.
They're just throwing money away. VCs are idiots.
I wish this. If someone lives in Brooklyn, can you just be on the standby? Because when they fold, I want you to be able to go in and put your stickers on the equipment. We could use some of that. We wouldn't mind buying some of that out
we
of
can always use some
bankruptcy.
Nice, good used equipment.
And in the meantime, you can also consider supporting us for our next show, in which I'll probably have. Isn't the Golden Globes tonight?
I
think it's tonight. Something's tonight. We'll have a report.
Golden Globes are tonight, yes.
I'm sure we'll have a report. Please support us at
Dvorak.org/NA.
So now you know all about the value for value model. Go out there and propagate this information.
Our formula is this. We go out, we hit people in the mouth.
Squirrel! Shut up, slave!
Well, on the subject of the Golden Globes,
yes.
I have this little clip because everybody's now, they've changed the way these shows are because the women just don't get up to look pretty. They have to make a statement. So they read this. The clip is politicizing the awards, power in the form of fashion.
Okay.
And Generation Z is at the forefront of breaking the mold.
Hold on. I have two of these clips. Play the CBC clip first.
Hollywood's award season has arrived. Beginning Sunday with the Golden Globes, the stars will be getting their steps in on the red carpet. And with much of the world watching, these sorts of things are always an opportunity for fashionable drama. Except now, the question you're more likely to hear, perhaps, may not be, who are you wearing, but why are you wearing that? As Rebecca Nethu explains, the Hollywood red carpet seems to have become the fabric of a very political message.
No.
Thank you. Thank you all.
First, there were the black dresses at last year's Golden Globes to show solidarity with sexual harassment and assault survivors. Then the orange pins at the Oscars to protest gun violence. And a few months ago at the Emmys, Jennifer Lewis's Nike outfit in support of Colin Kaepernick. Lately, red carpets have been less about fashion statements and more about political ones.
This is a new form of currency, is activism.
And Carla Welch is at the center of it. In between celebrity fittings here at her LA studio for clients like Sarah Paulson and Elizabeth Moss, the Canadian stylist posts social media messages on immigration, voting, and Indigenous issues. She dressed actor Tracee Ellis Ross in an array of black designers at the American Music Awards and worked behind the scenes to support the Time's Up movement. Welch has become one of the most sought-after stylists among Hollywood's elite, not despite her views, but because of them.
Yeah, starts to make you sick.
Yes.
So
do you remember when the Dixie Chicks and Michael Moore told George Bush he was an a-hole, and the left went, "Oh, you can't do that." That was in my lifetime.
Yeah.
That's changed quite a bit.
Yeah, now they cheer the MFer.
Yes.
Yeah, the MFer. Yay! So they've gone off the deep end. So let's finish this up. The other part's part 2.
And Generation Z is at the forefront of breaking the mold. Politically active 18-year-old actress Yara Shahidi wore a skirt covered with the face of African-American activist Angela Davis to a high-profile event in April. Stranger Things star Millie Bobby Brown wore the names of Parkland shooting victims on the back of her shirt at the Kids' Choice Awards.
The rise in social media has allowed celebrities to be a little bit more open about who they truly are. And I also think that the election of Trump has made a lot of people feel like, look, I'm not willing to just be quiet.
Believe in something.
Be quiet.
Brands also recognize the power of speaking up. 14-year-old Brown credited Calvin Klein for the design of her shirt to her 18 million Instagram followers. And Shahidi's Angela Davis skirt was made by Prada.
I think that the days of just being like, oh, I look pretty in a dress, which I love. We love celebrating fashion. We love wearing beautiful clothes. But they're coming a little bit to a close. And I think it's a good thing that there's different ways of using power.
Power in the form of fashion.
Why do you do this to me? Why do you do this to me?
I do it because I know it makes you as sick as it makes me.
Well,
because I listened to the clip and I said, oh, my God, I'm getting sick. I've got to put this on the show because Adam deserves to be just this sick.
Well, you're going to regret it with what I have for you next then. We're going to stay with award shows. The Kevin Hart drama. Now, instead of talking about, elections in the Congo and sending troops there, which I think isn't that kind of a thing these days where we have or don't have troops? No, don't report on that. No, let's get into Kevin Hart's tweets. And this was kind of I don't think we even talked about it. It's a little issue.
No, we managed to avoid it.
Yeah, we did. But then Ellen invited Kevin Hart on as to create a bridge between Kevin Hart and the Academy so he can host the Academy Awards again.
Well, let me help a little bit by backing this up. Kevin Hart was initially announced by the Academy Awards group to host the show, and then somebody came up with he apparently had his kind of this snide anti-gay tweets from 10 years ago,
around the time of his special, where he had similar jokes in the special.
Yeah, it was pretty much just jokes as tweets, and so somebody brought this up and said, "Oh my God, this is terrible." And Hart before it even became a scandal, quit. He said, "I'm not going to do the show."
Yes, he said, "I've already apologized for those tweets, and I'm not going to do it again just to be able to host the show. Otherwise, it'll keep coming back." I think he was right about that.
Yes.
And then Ellen wanted to build the bridge. And I've been learning. Yes, go ahead. I do believe that they can't get a host for this show. ABC. It's ABC. Ellen's on ABC. Hello.
Yeah.
Hello, it's ABC. ABC said, you got to patch this up, Ellen, make it happen.
Because we won't have any ratings. Every year this show comes out, the ratings go down. We look like doofuses. We've got to get this guy. He's at least entertaining. Maybe he can pull it together because we've had good luck in the past, with other black hosts and comedian hosts. And this guy's at the top of his game as a comic. You got to get him out because we got nobody else to do it. We can't get anyone that we want. So this was something of a scam.
And was it not who was it the Ellen show that had the Vegas massacre security guard on?
Yeah, which was something of a scam.
Something of a scam because she has deals with she's got slot machines and everything. Was that the Ellen show? I think it was the Ellen show.
Yes, it was because there is a slot machine called the Ellen.
Yes. So she is all in on the corporate structure, and she is doing whatever ABC wants her to do.
For big business.
And I've learned a lot about Ellen. I watched her special on Netflix, and that was quite good. She's got an interesting background. I learned some things I didn't know about her career.
Yeah, she's a San Francisco comic.
And, so she's clearly all in with the system. And I think she made a big mistake by trying to patch over the homophobic nature of Kevin Hart's past. That's how it's categorized. I don't think he's a homophobe. I think he's just making jokes. And 10 years ago, you could make different jokes. I think she's going to, and I already see evidence of it. She's being excoriated by the community, which I don't believe exists. But okay, there's supposed to be some LGBTQ, or to be precise, LGBTQIAPK community. And this came true just the other night as Don Lemon, the overnight sensation on CNN, schooled Kevin Hart and more. And he did this in a 10-minute soliloquy. 10 minutes of valuable...
Why did they leave this guy on the
10
air?
minutes of valuable overnight airtime. And so just by cutting out the pauses, which I did this morning, it was 4 minutes. That's how long his pauses were. And then I cut it down almost in half again to be able to share on the show. So I'm saying right off the bat, it is not a true representation of what he said because of all the very long pauses.
Yeah, dramatic pauses.
But I learned a lot about the black community, and I learned a lot about community. I'm using Don Lemon's words. The black community and the LGBT community. And it is an eye-opener.
Kevin, if anything, this is the time to hear other people out, to understand why they might have been offended. And I don't see any meaningful outreach to the LGBT community. And now you want the conversation to end. But many of us really need to keep the conversation going. It's life or death. And someone like Kevin Hart with one of the...
Just so you know, life or death now. We're talking about a comedian and the Oscars. Life or death.
Biggest megaphones in the world can be a leader, the ultimate change agent. He can help change homophobia in the black community.
Okay. This is where what do you mean homophobia in the black community? You're telling me that people of a different color are different? This does not sit well with me, Don.
Something Kevin's old Twitter jokes addressed, but in the wrong way. So take the tweet where he said that he would break a dollhouse over his son's head if he found him playing with it. He said that's gay.
By the way, if you look at this is so egregiously shitty of Don Lemon to do. He takes a tweet that is a joke with a punchline, and he removes the punchline and says, oh, yeah, if he were gay. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't literally read the tweet, which is a joke, maybe a funny one, but he pulls it apart and makes it sound like he would hit the kid with a dollhouse if he was, because it's gay.
That was a joke to Kevin. But the truth is, that is a reality for many little boys in the United States. Somewhere... a black dad is beating his black son.
Okay, now you've got my attention, Don Lemon. He's talking about violence in the black, I'm not going to say community, he says it all the time. He's saying black Americans beat their children.
The same way it happened to my friend, Oscar-nominated director Lee Daniels, who through his TV show Empire, portrayed how, as a little boy, his dad threw him in a trash can for wearing heels.
And now somehow we've magically transformed from being gay to wearing heels. And I don't think it's a prerequisite that you are gay as a child that you wear heels. But okay, Don, I'll take your word for it.
Took him out of the house and threw him in the trash can. That's a reality for a lot of little boys. Those views of the LGBT people within the black community have consequences. So think of this, okay? We're about facts here. This is a news organization. The Center for American Progress says that 40...
Did you hear that? We're a fact-based organization. Let me just get some facts for you.
Community have consequences. So think of this, okay? We're about facts here. This is a news organization. The Center for American Progress says that 44% of homeless gay youth are black. That's huge. Remember, black people only make up 12% of the U.S. population.
I like how he uses this statistic, because when it's about violence, let's just take one against police officers getting killed, or if it's about crime, when someone says, hey, man, the black population in America is only 12%, yet they're responsible for more XYZ, then you're a horrible bigot and an a-hole and you can't say these things. But now Don can use the statistic. This guy,
but he doesn't even use the statistic. He uses the derivative, which is very misleading.
Extremely.
Homeless gay youth are black. That's huge. Remember, black people only make up 12% of the U.S. population. Those kids were likely kicked out of their homes or had to run away because of who they are and because of how our community treats them.
Now, when he's saying community, he means black community. He's telling me that black Americans are more homophobic than any other color Americans. I find this to be a real outrage.
And we have to talk about outreach. Ellen, a trailblazer and respected leader in the LGBT community. She really is. She almost lost her entire career for coming out, for being a trailblazer, doing it first. She gave Kevin the opportunity to tell his story on her show. That is an olive branch if I have ever seen one. She says that she forgives Kevin and thinks that he should host the Oscars. But honestly, Ellen doesn't speak for the whole community.
Oh, big mistake, Ellen. You don't speak for the whole community. And this is where Don is finally going to tell us that there is no such thing as a community, and he's full of crap.
We need to speak up for the young black people, especially young black men, kids, in the LGBT community. I'm a gay black man. I don't know what it's like to be a white lesbian.
What? Aren't you in the same community? You're telling me that you're in the same community as a black gay man, and you don't understand what it's like to be a lesbian white woman? What kind of a community is that?
Especially young black men, kids, in the LGBT community. I'm a gay black man. I don't know what it's like to be a white lesbian. I don't know. If someone called me and they had an issue and said, hey, Don, you don't know what it's like to be a lesbian. You don't know what it's like to be a white man. You don't know what it's like to be a woman. I would listen to them. So I'm saying these issues need to be addressed, especially when it comes to black youth in our country, because they need to know that they have
so
value.
Smug and self-righteous.
Oh, yeah. He's the king. He's the king of the gays now. That's how he's portraying himself. The king of the community.
And it's okay to be who they are. We in the African-American community
I'm sorry, he's the king of the blacks now.
We have to stop low-key co-signing homophobia. It is not cool.
So, wow, man. Is this true? Is this true? That it goes something deeper than skin color? Or that it is just black Americans are more homophobic than the rest? Is that what he's saying?
That's what he might be saying.
That's what it sounds like to me.
That's what sounds like what he's saying, but I don't know how he can make that assertion. He doesn't even know how a white lesbian thinks. How does he know how a white anybody else thinks? And so how can he make that generalization?
No, he's doing it.
No,
this is 20 seconds left.
And we won't tolerate jokes that tell those youth otherwise.
Oh, so we can't have jokes now.
Because apologizing and moving on does not make the world a better place for people who are gay or people who are transgender. Being an ally does. So, Kevin, no one is against you. No one said that you should be fired or any of that. What they want for you is to bring light to this, to be an ally. So it is your chance right now to do the right thing, to change minds, and possibly save lives.
Okay, Don, thanks for counting on a comedian to save lives. But why is it that all I hear is it's white alt-right people who hate gays? That's all I hear. And here's Don Lemon in 10 minutes saying that it's worse with blacks.
Yeah,
I have no answer for all of this, but it just irked me.
Apparently.
He's generalizing a whole bunch of things here, and that is not cool, Don Lemon. That is not cool. Generalize.
Well, they had Chris Rock on as the host twice in a row because they liked him.
Yeah.
I don't know why they just don't bring him back.
No, I listened to did we talk about this last time? I listened to the Louis C.K., one of his recent stand-ups. And I got to tell you, something broke. Nothing he says is funny.
Oh, it's societal.
It's broken.
Here's a good example. You can find one of these the 1,000 funniest jokes, but I'm not talking about buying one off the shelf at a bookstore. I'm talking about going to a used bookstore and buying the 1,000 funniest jokes, or any of the Bennett Cerf books, where he collects all these jokes. And these are all, I'm talking about ones printed in the 50s and 60s. Pull those books off the shelf and tell me if there's any joke in the book that's funny. You won't find one.
No, they're just not funny anymore.
They're just not funny.
But Louis C.K.
You have to say, was it funny then?
It probably was.
I don't. You see, and here's another problem I have. I did take the folklore classes from Alan Dundas at the University of California, and a lot of it was focused on jokes. The problem I have with the thesis about the timeliness of jokes is the folklorist named Legman, who did The Rationale of the Dirty Joke, volumes 1 and 2. Rationale of the Dirty Joke is dirty jokes, and probably dirty jokes from starting in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s. These are all old jokes, because he goes back to the original joke that made this particular category what it was. And he has all these different categories, joke categories you don't even have anymore, like jokes about American Indians. You can read many of these jokes, and I would say not all of them, but at least half of them are still funny.
The dirty jokes.
Yeah, the dirty jokes.
I can see that.
So I'm just kind of baffled by, what is this, the non-dirty societal jokes that are talking about, daily life. Why is Louis C.K. not funny anymore?
I don't know, but he just wasn't. I think it's also, you can make comebacks in America. We're great at it. Everyone gets at least one comeback shot. But when you come back, you got to eat pie, man. You got to eat humble pie. You got to just,
he refuses.
You got to make fun of yourself. He doesn't. The first thing out of his mouth is, I lost $35 million. How's your day going? It's wrong. And I think that because that's your opening joke. No,
it's
good.
Not a joke to get much sympathy from anybody.
No. So he's screwing up the great American tradition of the comeback kid, and it's over now for him in my book.
Well, he's the comeback can be re-engineered. It's possible.
I'm not seeing it.
But from the looks of it, if he's going to keep on this,
I'm not seeing it.
If he's going to stay on this path of being adamant, I mean, his attitude is, look, I talked about these things that I've been accused of in my material. It's not like news to anybody that I'm like a masturbator. And so he resents the fact that it's turned back on him.
Yes.
And instead of seeing what's wrong with this picture and doing what he's supposed to do, which he doesn't know how to do.
That's part of the problem.
He just is irked.
Yeah.
Which that makes most comics who are irked
are not funny.
They're not going to be funny.
Right. Oh, well. So, pay attention, people. This is how not to do it.
So I didn't watch the Kevin Hart Ellen thing. What came of it?
It's nothing. Who cares? Nothing's coming of it.
Still not going to do the show.
No, I think Ellen wants to do the show. I think she's vying for it.
She's done it before.
Yeah, she would want to go back. That's what I'm thinking. But I don't know.
They don't want her back.
More importantly, I really, really don't care.
Well, you cared enough to do a segment.
That was different. It's Don Lemon. Are you kidding me? He's the king of all blacks and gays, of the communities.
All right, let's go back to some of the clips from 2009. These are, now I realize what this bit is. These are clips from 2009, but within the clip, it could be something older like the 2000 or the 1988 Al Gore thing.
Right.
And for example, a good example of a 2009 clip is the Taylor Swift clip, which used to be a classic on this show.
Hold on. Going back to 2009, when John first identified the talent of a then very young Taylor Swift.
Frustrated, but Taylor's strive for perfection only makes the people who work with this young star respect her that much more.
Let's go!
there's been times where I've played a solo, and then she'll say, well, can you kind of do this? And she'll sing me a melody, and I'll incorporate that, and that's very impressive for someone her age.
The problem that I was having with the solo is that it's getting a little noodly. Like noodly. I'd rather it be like less notes. That would be great. Let's try it again.
I remember this, and I remember being very skeptical of your adoration of the young Taylor, and how wrong I was.
Yeah, I saw this coming down Broadway.
Yeah, you were
had the
so
marketing
right.
chops,
You
too.
were
She
so
was
right.
not a slouch.
You were so right. On the money. Can I bring us back to?
Well, no, don't bring us back because I got one more.
Okay,
and that way we don't have to go back again.
Oh, good.
Now, this was one of the early. This is one of the early Jobs karmas.
Oh,
from 2009, where we had the Nancy Pelosi thing incorporated with an old Dick Powell clip from one of the old Broadway musicals that was turned into a TV show or to a movie. Dick Powell.
Say, have you got something with kind of a march effect, march rhythm to it? Yes, I have. I have something about a forgotten man, but I don't have any words to it yet. Well, play it. I tell you, I just got the idea for it last night. I was down on Times Square watching those men in the bread line, standing there in the rain waiting for coffee and donuts. Men out of a job around the soup kitchen. Stop! Go on. That's it. That's what this show's about. The Depression. Men marching in the rain. Donuts and crawlers. Men marching. Jobs.
Let's vote for Jobs.
That's right. Is that the clip you edited back then?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I was doing good work.
Yeah, what happened?
I don't know. That's what I like to know.
All right, we're back. This is I have a presentation, a couple of clips. It's very much for us, but I think in looking at tomorrow, the Brexit movie will be released in the UK. It will be aired on Channel 4, and it also, I believe it drops in the US on HBO. This is a propaganda piece. It has big names in it. It's a propaganda piece to tell everyone that the algos ripped them off in the Brexit vote, and the timing could not be more perfect because today, again, we read that everybody wants a do-over, something we predicted from day one because that's the way it works. And so it looks like they're just pushing and pushing and pushing. Now, comic strip blogger, he was posting in noagendasocial.com, which is our Mastodon federated node. By the way, as an aside, I figured out why Mastodon doesn't have the toxicity of Twitter. It hit me all of a sudden.
Okay.
And this is something that was not in the original Twitter design. The ability to retweet with a comment. So you can boost a post on Mastodon, but you can't add a comment. So, so a true boost, like on a retweet on Twitter, which is a user-demanded function, by the way. People were doing RTs.
It wasn't there originally.
No, the users demanded it. They were using.
Well, there was an element of that, but at the same time, users were going RT.
Yep.
And then cutting and pasting somebody else's tweet.
Right.
And Twitter felt that was giving the users too much personal power, and so they came up with the retweet button.
And that actually made things worse because now you retweet, it shows up as a tweet on your timeline, not a reply. Replies don't usually show up that quickly. It shows your followers a retweet, and you could add any snarky comment or whatever comment you want, and that is what starts the virality. This does not exist within the Mastodon system. And the guy, Gargon, whatever his name, he says, I'm not putting it in. So I'm not putting it in because that is exactly what ruined Twitter. And I think it's a very astute observation. I think the RTs with comment is to blame. Anyway, so comic strip blogger's in there. And, he's an expert in machine learning now. So he claims. Now, I've known this guy since early Daily Source Code days. I mean, way before this show.
Huge, original fan.
OG. And I have no idea what he does. I know he doesn't make money on his cartoons. And it hit me all of a sudden. He's my handler.
Oh, God.
Think about it. Because he always wants you, like, you don't say anything about Poland. And it gets all pissed off. But he stays. 20 years almost. He stays. I think, if you look back in his history, I think he was in the tech industry. I think he was probably some kind of agent. And then Microsoft kicked him out because he was, telling the dude too many things to their system. And I think whoever he works for, if it's the Russians or whoever, Interpol, I don't know who he works for. But he clearly got demoted, and they said, "Here, do this podcast guy. He's your target now." Because he stays. It doesn't, he'll get pissed off about something. It's always something in the show.
He can't quit
that we do. He can't. I am his target.
I am allowed to quit.
He's not allowed to quit. So anyway, he says,
as silly as this sounds,
it's not that silly.
It's a possibility.
It really could be. He's like the guy that couldn't handle the big job, so they gave him me. Handle that guy. Oh, Jason. All right. So it doesn't matter. He's a part of our experience, and I appreciate him for that.
He does some good art.
He does some great art too. He's a great contributor, and sometimes he's right. But handler. So he's posting about, this proves machine learning, and I kind of misunderstood what he was saying because he posted a video of Dominique Cummings at some kind of marketing conference. Dominique Cummings is the Brad Parscale of Brexit. This is the guy who did all of the Vote Leave campaign and the Facebook campaign. And he explains exactly how he did it. And we like this stuff. It's interesting because, these days, Facebook and other social networks are seen as, it's both a fantastic tool because you can get stuff done. You can change the electorate's thinking. At the same time, the Russians could use it and change the electorate's thinking. So it's mysterious and it's scary. And what do we do with it? And for us, I think it's just as interesting as listening to how the digital campaign for Trump ran as to hear what he did and his conclusions, this Dominique Cummings, for the Brexit campaign. And I thought you'd be interested too. Okay. So we'll start off with the messaging.
We worked out essentially what I call...
Oh, by the way, the guy has a bit of Tourette's and he's a stutterer. So, I cut
Thanks for that.
Because otherwise we'll just be going... But in this case, we got to listen to him.
We worked out essentially what I call message would be. And it was very simple. It had arguably... say 5 elements to it. The first was the theme of take back control. Note the word back, triggering loss aversion, the feeling that something has been lost and we can regain what we've lost, which I think was interesting. And it worked on different levels. The most obvious level was we've got to take back control from Brussels, but it was also, and I think David Cameron and George Osborne didn't quite appreciate this, it was also about taking back control of the system itself. It was, for a lot of people, take back control made them think, these are the guys who screwed up the economy, who drove it off a cliff in 2008, whose mates are all the Goldman Sachs bankers and the hedge funders on massive bonuses. Us mugs on PAYE are the ones paying the bills for this. We'll show those guys. We'll take back control from you lot in London. And I think that was a powerful feeling.
So there you go. Taking it back, this is just marketing. This is nothing special, by the way. Taking it back was the message. Take it back, and that was what they decided upon early on, and they liked it. But then they went to some academics and found persuasion studies, persuasive usage of words and tactics that had actual formulas attached to it. So, again, nothing really crazy. There's tons of focus groups done on what persuasive tactics work. Marketing is persuasion. And so they brought in the guys who done some studies.
So we had to do things, we had to take risks, and we had to do things in a slightly new way. So one of the basic things that I did was I brought in a team of physicists who essentially looked at campaigning from complete first principles. And what they did was they simply scanned around the world and they said, what studies have been done on issues of turnout and persuasion that actually have good maths behind them to support and have been replicated and we can actually have confidence in? And they basically filtered them all out and came back to me and the team and said, here is a small selection of things of actually high quality or reasonable quality work which you can rely upon. And here are the principles that you can see in these studies that have been replicated with randomized controlled trials and whatnot in the States. We basically created a checklist of what these things were, and we built the communications team around trying to exploit each of these elements which the physicists found. They also constructed models to help direct resources for the ground campaign, so where do you actually send your activists, and the digital campaign, how do you actually do that in a scientific way. And essentially you had streams of data coming in from all sorts of different ways, the website, email, on the ground, canvassing, social media, blah, blah, all of this stuff, traditional polling, all of this stuff coming in, and you had the data science people sitting at the heart of the operation and essentially taking our core messages and just running experimentally a whole bunch of different things on Facebook and elsewhere, and then figuring out what things work and what things don't work. And we started off with relatively small amounts of money just to run this experimental process.
So there's your A/B testing. You had a small data set of proven persuasion techniques. And what I found interesting, which comes back in a minute, is he was also getting feedback from the campaigners on the ground. This is never mentioned, but people with boots on the ground who would go door to door. And this is the only time machine learning was used. They changed the way, and this is important, they changed what they used as polling data. And he explains.
We did a new kind of polling. So I'm sure all of you know, the polling methodology used throughout the world is essentially the same system that was invented in the late 1930s. And the idea of it is, you take, roughly speaking, 1,000-person sample, and if it's random and representative, then you can rely on the mathematics of the normal distribution, the famous bell curve, and that should give you a pretty accurate picture of what people think. For various reasons, that is becoming harder and harder to do. Happy to answer questions about why that is. But leaving that aside, what the physicists said was, this is actually not the way that you would invent polling if you were going to invent polling now. The way actually to do it is take massive samples of hundreds of thousands of people, ideally actually millions of people, but say hundreds of thousands of people, and then use machine learning, and you will actually have a system which is faster, cheaper, more accurate. And it has another great advantage, which we exploited, which is that if you do these very large sample surveys, you then have subsample. You can define the demographics that you interrogate yourself. And what we did was we basically used the exact same categories for the demographics that Facebook uses for its digital advertising platform. So we sucked in data on the precise same basis that Facebook marketing allows. And then we had, therefore, large subsamples of the overall polling samples, which you could actually rely on. And then you could take that data and plug it straight back into Facebook. So we could say, for example, we will target women between 35 and 45 who live in these particular geographical entities who don't have a degree or who do have a degree or whatever, etc., etc. And because you've got very large samples, you can actually get useful information on those kind of relatively small breakdowns.
Now, I'm no marketing expert, but this sounds just like regular old cross-indexing to me.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. I think it's right. I think you say that.
I mean, machine learning in this case is just...
Well, machine learning is bull crap. I mean, that part we know is it's just nothing. It's just there is no such thing as machine learning. The machines don't learn anything.
It was just the ability to cross-reference, cross-index these categories to drill
like
down.
A card sorter.
So exactly. So this is what that resulted in.
So we did all this, and we, as I said, we essentially ran a whole series of experiments based on what we found in the conventional polling and the focus groups out in the digital world, and then filtered what worked. And then we held back almost all of our budget, and then we basically dumped the entire budget in the last 10 days, and really in the last 3 or 4 days.
Again, exactly what the Trump campaign did, held back and then just blew millions in the last week, in the last few days, based upon weeks and weeks of A/B testing.
This is exactly what the media does not want to be passed around.
Exactly.
And we aimed it at, I can't remember exactly, but I think roughly about 7 million people saw something like, I think, 1.5 billion digital ads over a relatively short period of time. And in parallel to that, you had the whole ground operation, which were also, to begin with, they were quite sceptical about this. What the hell is some guy who babbles on about quantum mechanics? What does he have to tell people who, like me, have been going out to leaflet on doorsteps for 30 years? So people were very sceptical, but the people on the ground, you know, if you're doing that job, you actually respond well to things that work. So very quickly they came back and said, actually, these boffins have sent us to the right place. It's unbelievable. These are our people. So quickly, that kind of trust issue was sorted out inside the organisation, and the ground team were happy to go where the data suggested that their efforts would be most useful.
So I think this ground team is undervalued in the overall scheme of things, because they were basically saying, here's where the people live, go knock on their doors, and they were getting good results. One major item that is no longer discussed as a part of the Brexit vote, and that was was it Jill Dando who was murdered? Was that her, or was this the wrong one?
I don't remember. I don't know.
Yeah, it's the murder, the woman who was murdered.
She was a poller?
No, she was a politician, wasn't she? Jo Cox, I'm sorry, Jo Cox. Yeah, she was of the Labour Party. She was killed. And this is no longer...
Right. You're talking about in the UK. Okay.
In the UK, yes. Jill Dando was a different killing. No, this was Jo Cox, and she was killed on June 16th. And that was, just a few weeks before the Brexit vote. And that changed things dramatically. But the elites, they had a different view as to what the rest of the country had. And this guy, of course, saw that in his mass polling data.
And our campaign took advantage of it. You know, we operated on...
I'm sorry, hold on. This is wrong clip. Here we go.
Why did this happen? Was it just immigration? No, it wasn't just immigration. Giving people a chance to vote for the NHS as well as voting against the EU. Without that, then the economic scares of the establishment would have been too powerful and we would have lost. Could we have won without immigration? Absolutely not. The reality of it is that those three big forces that I talked about created the conditions in which we could win, but then you had the government making a series of big mistakes, and you had our team which managed to exploit it. And their mistakes essentially were their renegotiation was a disaster. Unlike in 1975, when Wilson pulled the same trick, there he persuaded people that the relationship had changed, and therefore the polls moved. This time, no one believed what Cameron came back with. And in particular, Cameron never understood the danger for him of coming back and saying essentially nothing had changed on immigration. They also, I think, ran a bad campaign. They relied on people, on MNC Saatchi and various big advertising agencies who did a fairly rubbish job. And they lived in the bubble, and you can see that in the last 10 days after the terrible murder. They essentially ditched their whole campaign and stopped talking about economic risks and turned the whole thing just into, well, we're the good people and you're the bad people, because that was the self-reinforcing culture that you heard in London. Whereas in fact, as soon as you went outside the M25 and did market research, the rest of the country had a totally different reaction to the murder than people, better educated, richer people living in London did.
So without the fear of the immigrant fear, without the NHS fear that you'll be paying $350 million extra a week or whatever it was in your health care, it never would have worked. But they also completely misjudged the Jo Cox murder. And to wind it up, he's going to shoot a big middle finger to the media, the people who are supposed to know better and know how these things work.
And our campaign took advantage of it. You know, we operated on We just, on very, very simple, tried and tested rules that work about organisations. We kept the MPs out of all management. No MP had anything to do with the management of the campaign. It was run by about 6 or 10 people, the oldest of which was me, the youngest of whom was 21. So we kept this team small. They worked extremely hard. They made a lot of sacrifices, and they focused on the public, not on the media, and not on the insider game. I think in the long run, some of the things that we try to do, you can see all the parties now are trying to learn from. All the parties are trying to learn from some of the things that we did. I don't think they've done a very good job, either of them, in this last campaign. The reality is that most communications companies are populated by bullshitting charlatans, and most of them should be fired. And I think that in the next 10 years, a massive chunk of them will be fired. And people in Silicon Valley and others will increasingly take over this industry the way that they've taken over other industries. And if you've got a not very good degree in English or gender studies or something like that, then you're very rapidly going to get, I think you're going to get fired. And the industry will go through the kind of change that other industries have seen.
There you go.
Gender studies. Gender studies. Yeah, you can get a degree in gender studies. Yes. That's really a winner. Well, that was interesting. I think it was a little long. Yeah. I think some people may have been bored. I liked it because I'm interested in this stuff to an extreme.
Yes.
And
well, why I think it was important to do it a little longer is that if we watch this movie Monday, I wonder how much of the truth of what he really did comes back into the creative product.
Probably none.
I think it'll be he got Facebook information and then did it. Propaganda.
None.
None. Probably none.
This movie is a piece of propaganda, obviously, and it's designed for exactly what you said. I definitely want to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
And it will probably have some effect. But, this constant hounding by the media, I mean, they can't really be overlooked, even though he thinks that, these guys are a bunch of screw-ups. But it can't be overlooked because the never-ending hounding and hounding. I mean, when I go to the bank the other day and, one of the tellers is depressed and, she thinks that world's coming to an end and all the rest of it. She's watching the news and she's watching the network news. And it's just not a healthy environment for most people.
But the conundrum...
Stay off of TV.
I mean, so we're not the only people seeing this. There's people in Washington, D.C. and other political centers of power.
A lot of people seeing this.
And they see this. And so here's the conundrum. Do we all go out and hire this guy or guys like him and dive into this? Or do we see the danger that anyone could do this? And do we need to regulate it?
Nothing to regulate.
No, but
just targeted advertising is just a form of.
Well, I know, but you got to put yourself into a moronic.
No one's going to do it.
Official.
You can't do anything about it.
No, but they will try.
Well, they're just wasting time. They should probably learn from the guy.
Yeah, I'm always surprised. It's the same way. You got to repeat the right message over and over and over again.
To the right people.
Yeah, but so what else is new? The guy just found the people.
Right, he used a new methodology to find the people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the marketing people have always been doing all their lives, is from the beginning of the idea to the end to the most recent. They're just trying to find these people. That's why Facebook is so appealing, because they claim they've got a key to the kingdom. They got a way of finding the people you're looking for. Yeah. You're looking for this person because this person wants to buy your product. We have them right here in this little box.
I am so happy we don't have to do that.
No, what I actually enjoy about this show is that our audience is everybody. In fact, we did a meetup on Friday.
Yes, tell me about the meetup. Yes.
So this is boots on the ground for me. We had about 32 to 37 people show up, which was a lot because it was a flash meetup. We just threw it together at the last minute.
How many people?
About 37.
Not bad for a flash.
No, not bad. Not bad.
That's very good, actually.
And it was all, the classic no agenda mavens, a little different, slightly different, in that there were a little more academics, I think, than, for example, in Seattle. There's very few. By academics, I don't mean they're professors. I mean they work at the university. There's at least 2 or maybe 3 librarians there.
Oh.
including some interesting ones.
Did they have? Well, stop. Did they have hair in a bun and glasses that they could then undo the bun?
They're all men.
Oh, well, did they have a bun? Hello.
No, there were no man buns in the place.
Okay. I used to be a spokesperson for the American Library Association.
Give us your pitch.
I don't remember. They used my picture on posters.
Oh. Okay.
I was more a poster boy. I wasn't the spokesperson. I was a poster boy. Literally poster boy. Yeah.
And it was a good group. I learned a lot. I got some interesting little tidbits which I'll bring into the show. I don't have today. I didn't bring their the contributions in the prescribed envelope are still in a bay.
In processing.
So I'm going to put them in the Thursday show.
Did Mimi take them home again?
Sorry?
Did Mimi take the envelope home?
No, there's none. It's a bunch of envelopes. You get a bunch of envelopes.
Just kidding.
And they're in my back pocket. That's where they immediately go, and then they get ferreted away.
Processed.
But it was a good group, and it was a good place. It's Gilman Brewery's kind of a Belgian beer house, brew house, and they make interesting products, including a lager that's quite tasty. Anyway, we need to do more of these. But you can. I did have one guy. Luckily JC was there, and JC could talk when it comes to this sort of thing. This guy is Polish, big guy, and he's going on. He's a troubleshooter for a bunch of Silicon Valley operations right now, looking for work. And he's reading me the riot act about how the Silicon Valley's turned into a bunch of left wingers, and this has to do with agile, the reason, the style of work. Where it's like a lot of.
Hold on, explain this agile. What is this?
Agile is just in a nutshell is where you bullshit. Everybody's bullshitting each other, so there's no.
Oh, fake it till you make it.
Nothing ever gets done, and he's got this theory that this creates a lying environment, which is fit for the lefties. Anyway, it's a long story, but he wants us to cover this more. He goes, you're not talking about how terrible it is in Silicon Valley and how they all become left-wingers. I said, well, when I was a kid, they were all right-wingers. And he says, you should cover that more. And I tried to say to him, and I'm going to say it to everybody else who tries to get us to do certain things, we deconstruct the news. We don't initiate coverage unless there's something that initiates it for us. We have out of the blue come up with a couple of little things that look like we initiated, but in fact, it comes from information that we're deconstructing, and there's nothing to deconstruct here. The Silicon Valley is just a bunch of a-holes, and this is about as far as you can go.
Hey, well done! You nailed it.
Yeah, you nailed it. And it's just sometimes it's very hard to get people to realize we're not investigative reporters. We're not, we are deconstructionists. Period. And that's what we do. And if there's nothing to deconstruct, there's nothing for us to talk about. But there's plenty to deconstruct, let alone start making stuff up. So I said, well, you should talk to my son. And so I put JC over there who could talk for days about management in Silicon Valley.
Yeah, I'll bet.
And so that was I put him over there, and the hour later he's still there. He's this guy's. It's funny to watch. It's like a heavyweight boxing championship.
Did you talk to anyone else? Was there any?
I talked to a lot of people. I didn't talk to that guy that much because I couldn't keep hearing this. I talked to everybody. There wasn't maybe one or two people. Right. I talked to some guy. I talked about football with a guy from Alabama and his girlfriend are moving to Arizona eventually. I talked about it. It was a great meetup. Lots of good conversations.
Good. I remember 22nd of February is the the Des Moines, Iowa meetup.
That's what people have been pestering me about. 22nd of February.
Yes.
Who would go to it?
Yeah, hello. It's because we're there that there's a meetup.
Okay.
Yeah. The 22nd, we're actually flying in early to do the meetup. That's
good. I think you should be able to pack them in.
I have no idea how many producers we have in
the Midwest.
No idea.
They'll come in from Chicago.
Yeah, they might.
And Milwaukee.
So lots of time to plan for that. And actually, we had dinner with Mark, our staff documentarian last night. He's all jacked about Mark Hall. He's all jacked about the Texas meetup. which is still in the works, people. Stay tuned. It's coming. I promise you.
I'm going to show my support by donating to No Agenda. Imagine all the people who could do that. Oh, yeah, that'd be fab. Yeah, on No Agenda in the morning.
And I should mention the dude, one of our dudes named Mohammed was at the meetup.
Did he have his headgear on?
No. So let's thank a few people. We don't have that many on this list today, but let's start with Joseph Costello in Pittston, Pennsylvania. He's starting a Dame account for his lovely wife, Mary.
Wait, this is good.
Yeah. She used to tolerate my listening to the show, but has become a true fan. We had a lot of anecdotal stories about that sort of thing at the meetup.
Well, this is the times when these things happen, where people turn.
Yeah. Yep. Herb Lamb, $110.10. That was $111.11. This is Herb Lamb, $110. Sir Herb Lamb to you, $110.10. Sir Herb Lamb, he's the Viscount of Georgia.
Yes.
Sir Austin of the Snowy Cascades, $110.10 in Sammamish, Washington.
And he says he'd like karma for his wife, Laura. Big week next week for her in job search with multiple interviews. Yes, coming up for her.
Jonathan Hess, $110 in Deutschland.
Hello, Deutschland.
Hess. Rick Cable, $100.
Now, he wants karma for his son, Matt Cable, who's deploying overseas this week for a 7-month deployment.
Put at the end.
Hey, listen, he says his son, Matt, was actually on The Rock's new fitness challenge show, Titan Games.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, we got that guy, too. We got a luge guy.
We got a Titan. We got a luge.
Those guys that are on those challenge shows are tough guys.
It's no joke. All right, karma coming up for him.
Of course, those shows are meant to humiliate these people.
No, not Matt.
Dane Coleman, 8205. He's going to be a knight. He's going to be the knighted knight today.
I'm going to read his notes since he's becoming a knight. Today I become a knight of the No Agenda Roundtable. The show has been a consistent and significant part of my life for the better part of my 20s and into my 30s, helping me to laugh at the news, think critically, and maintain reason and response in this age of political poppycock and climate fear-mongering. I'd like to be known as Sir Dane the Great, and I'm requesting Highlander grog and hash brownies at the round table. Let me make sure I order that so it's there. And requesting small business karma, please. He co-founded a design and digital media company at RUEF.com, RUEF.com. Cheers, fellas. Keep up the fantastic work. The show is always stellar, but has been on fire lately. Thank you very much. And I'm putting your request at the table as we speak.
So he's actually named, his name is a pun on Great Dane, the giant dog.
Yes.
Tim White, 8008, our one and only boob today. Sir Phenom, 6960 in Appleton, Wisconsin. Richard Terry in Houston, Texas, 5510. Michael Gates, 5280. And the following people, as we wrap it up quickly, are all $50 donors, name and donations, starting with Paul Van Cordelaar in IJmuiden.
Oh, almost. IJmuiden. Very good.
And for some reason, when you, and I should tell this to people, when you're saying these Dutch names, you have to yell.
Yes, yes, doesn't work otherwise. IJmuiden.
Alexander Fonteres, I think. Fonteres maybe, in Jacksonville, Florida. Todd Moore in Arlington, Virginia. Andrew Martin in Sydney, New South Wales, Australia. Victor Munoz in Miami. Andre Metetic, parts unknown. Villarreal in Mercedes, Texas. And Matthew Januszewski, Sir Matthew to you. Matthew Januszewski, Sir Matthew, in Chicago. And last but not least, Sir Brett Farrell over in Oklahoma City. At least that's where I think he's from. That's where the bank is. His address is never on the check.
And Richard Terry, with his double nickels on the dime, wanted some cancer karma as well. So we'll make sure we put that in. All right, short list today.
Short list, short sheeted. It was a holiday week. So
we do want to thank everybody, of course, thanking those who came in under 50 for anonymity. which is the way to be to donate anonymously to the show. And of course, we have our subscription programs. Please check out dvorak.org/NA and get in on any program that you can to join the Value for Value Network and support the programming and the work. And you can do that again, I said, at dvorak.org/NA. Here's the karma sequence.
Jobs, 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 and jobs. Let's vote for jobs.
You've got karma.
And, interestingly, 0 birthdays today.
Huh.
Not a single one.
It is odd.
Yeah, that rarely happens. However, we do have one knighting to take care of, so we'll get Dane Coleman up here once you got your blade up.
Get this thing out of here. Here you go.
All right, perfect. All right, Dane, hey! Step on up. Thank you very much for your support of the Value for Value Network, known as the No Agenda Show, in the amount of $1,000 or more. Very proud to bring you up here and to pronounce-ticate you, Sir Dane the Great. Yes, for you we have hookers and blow, rent boys and Chardonnay, Highlander grog and hash browns, cookies and vodka, warm beer and cold women. We got single malt scotch. We got craw ship and cane breaks. We got Cooper's Pale Ale and Kanga Bangers. We got Dr. Pepper and a Quick Handy, onion rings and ice cream, Captain Morgan's and women with questionable reputation, Polish potato vodka, sparkling cider and escorts, bong hits and bourbon, gauges and sake, ginger ale and gerbils, and mutton and mead. And for you, Sir Dane the Great, we have a ring, sealing wax, and certificate ready. Just go to noagendanation.com/rings. Give Eric the Shill all your information, and he'll take care of that for you post haste. And thank you for supporting the No Agenda Show. Okay.
Well, what do we got?
I got a couple things. I was hoping you would have
I got a bunch of stuff left here.
Yeah, wrap some stuff up for us.
Well, let's do some. Here's some reports from that we don't get in the United States at all. I don't know why this one doesn't get some play, but let's play killing mayors in Mexico.
Yes, it's a new sport.
They're killing them.
It's a new sport.
In Mexico, human rights groups and family members are demanding justice after the mayor of a town in the southern state of Oaxaca was gunned down New Year's Day, just hours after taking office. Alejandro Aparicio was surrounded by supporters and publicly touring city offices when he was shot on the street. The gunman was pinned to the ground until police could arrive to arrest him. He's been described as a 34-year-old former police officer from northern Mexico. Aparicio's widow, Victoria Feria, believes the killer and did not act on his own.
We want to do everything possible to clarify this murder because there can be no impunity. That is what we are asking for as a family, to clarify the killing and to support us.
Aparicio was a member of the Progressive Party of Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador. His death came as human rights researchers said 175 Mexican politicians were killed over a 12-month period ending last August.
Jeez.
Dropping like flies.
Way to go, Mexico.
They want to run in our country.
Yeah.
Another, I don't know why this didn't get more play, because you could have had a lot of fun with it. I only have a very short report from the Canadian Broadcasting Company on the German hack.
Oh, yes. There's very little. There's some European reporting that I picked up. I'm glad you have a clip.
In Germany, hundreds of politicians at all levels of government have been hit by a massive data breach. It reportedly includes addresses, cell phone numbers, credit card details, internal communications. At least some of it was leaked through Twitter. We don't know who's behind the breach, but officials say all but one party was specifically targeted.
Now, let's just stop for a second here.
Well, let's stop for a second and ask which is the party that wasn't targeted.
The AfD.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the new guys, the Trump guys, basically. The MAGA, the MAGAs, the Make Germany Great Again people. The Alternativen für Deutschland, AfD. But it wasn't just politicians; it was also celebrities. There's all kinds of stuff in here, and it's from cloud accounts. It's not just from. In fact,
thank you, Cloud.
Yeah, it seems like there's some good stuff out there. At the same, this.
If anybody, we have a lot of dudes named Ben. If anyone can get us I'm sure I don't know what the size of this file is, but I'd sure like to take a look at this stuff.
Yeah. How about this Dark Overlord thing, though? This is not getting a lot of play, but I'm seeing people getting very worried about this. This is the group, the Dark Overlord, who on New Year's Eve says, hey, we have 18,000 documents related to September 11th, 2001 terrorist attacks, in particular documentation about the insurance policies of, I guess, the World Trade Center, all buildings.
Yeah, the guy who bought the Trade Center, like not so long before the collapses.
Yeah, it was Silverstein.
Well, I thought that it was well known that he took out these big insurance policies just before the thing was leveled.
Well, so they're slowly releasing pieces of information, which nothing earth-shattering yet, but it does seem like people in Washington are worried about this.
Huh.
I'm not quite sure why. What do they have to hide?
There must be something. They're worried about.
And they say, pay the F up or we're going to bury you in this, says the Dark Overlord group or the Dark Overlord person. And
what kind of money is he asking for?
I don't think he's asking for money. Is he? No, he is asking for money. What are they doing? Yeah, however, you'll be paying us. Yeah, so he wants to be paid. Or they want to be paid. I guess they've released some decryption keys, which do unlock some documents. So they have some proof. Yeah, well, this is the same with the Tribune Company. That was a total ransomware problem they ran into.
Yeah, that was recent.
Yeah.
I thought the ransomware thing was over. I thought people had protections against that. Did they come up with some new scheme?
No. Oh, and then this obvious one.
Spot the spook. Spot the spook. Everybody wants to spot the spook.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure your clip is going to be similar to mine.
Well, for the moment, this is Russia's word against Whelan and Whelan's family.
This is the American Whelan, Whelen, who has been detained in Russia as a spy.
His word. Russia say that he was caught red-handed in the act of espionage, and Whelan's family insist he was just there for a wedding. Whelan's lawyer is now seeking bail, and Russian courts have till the 24th to decide. Russian media is also claiming now that Whelan spent the last decade developing a network of contacts in Russia using social media, leading up to his arrest last week, supposedly with a flash drive containing a list of employees from a secret Russian department. Whelan's family says he just loves travelling, he loves Russia, and he was helping to arrange a friend's wedding. Much remains unknown about Whelan, who lives in this house in Michigan. It's emerged that he is also a Canadian citizen, a British citizen, possibly an Irish citizen. And today, the British Foreign Minister also spoke out.
I'm telling you, you got 4 passports. I love the cover. I talked to Agent Orange about this. The cover of him having an honorable discharge from the military. Total cover. This guy is a spook.
Duh.
Hello. There's like questions. And of course it's retaliation for locking up the Russian spy Martina. What's her name?
Yeah, I can't remember her name.
Yeah, because they're not registered agents. You have to understand, in the intelligence game, you have registered agents. If you're an agent for another country, which usually means you're just paying off people with money, it's called lobbying in America. You're a spy and you register.
Be a diplomat.
Spy. Diplomat, spy, same thing. And if you're not registered, and every country has unregistered agents in each other's countries, and you get caught, or there's pretty much, they're known to be agents. Hey, you take one of ours? Good, we're going to take one of yours. The difference is the FSB will actually tell everyone what this guy did. We don't have anything on Bettina other than, she was lobbying. She was sleeping with people.
We probably don't know what she did. That's one of the reasons.
It's one of the funny bits about it. So, yes, No Agenda confirms the guy's got to be a spook.
Of course. 4 passports. Well, he's just a passport hobbyist. I want to see how many countries I can get a passport from. That's my job. That's what I do.
You really, if you have it's not easy to get multiple passports as a U.S. citizen. They do complain, They're like, wait, do you want to be a U.S. citizen or something else? Well, in my daughter's case, my mom's Dutch. Okay, we'll allow that. But then, I was 4 different countries?
No.
No.
And that's all we know of. He may have other passports buried somewhere. You just don't know.
Yes.
All right. I don't have a clip on that. I just thought it would be worth discussing. I do have some more other weird stuff that is not being discuss. We do have the flu season thing happening. It's not being promoted as much in this country, but apparently this batch of the flu has already killed a few people. But in Canada, they're all freaked out because it got off to an early start and started spreading before anyone could do much about it. So let's play our gratuitous and probably yearly flu season clip.
It is shaping up to be a particularly brutal flu season in Canada. Now, of course, the flu can be more than just unpleasant. It can be dangerous and even deadly. Well, new numbers are out today, and the number of cases has gone through the roof, and one particular strain is doing most of the damage. So far this flu season, there have been more than 13,000 lab-confirmed cases in Canada. 11,000 of those were variations of influenza A, with H1N1 as the dominant strain. It's a big jump in cases, nearly 50% over this time last year, with about 2/3 of them hitting young, otherwise healthy adults, those people who might not think they're particularly vulnerable. But that's how H1N1 tends to operate already.
Wait a minute. Isn't this the swine flu? H1N1 is swine flu.
I think H1N1 is swine flu, but it's not version A.
Oh.
I think, because if it is anything close to swine flu, they always call it swine flu. I don't know, now that you mention it. You're right.
24 Canadians have died. Now, health officials say it's not too late to get the flu shot. Far from it. There are still months left in the season. And what's more, this year's vaccine is proving more effective than in years past.
No, it's the bird flu. H1N1 is the bird flu.
No, I thought H1N5 was the bird flu. Okay, kid, let it play out.
We'll figure it out.
As Cass Russi tells us, that is welcome news for those who've been devastated by the virus in the worst possible way.
There's Jude with his crackers.
Not swine flu.
The flu season is an unusually painful time of the year for Jill Promoli. In 2016, her little boy Jude died from the flu, even though he'd been vaccinated a few months earlier.
So when we get to this point every year, it's stressful all over again and just really sad, because I know there are going to be thousands of more families like mine where people are going to lose their lives and their loved ones from this preventable disease.
Health officials have said it's rare for people to die from infectious diseases they've been vaccinated against.
It is the swine flu.
Yeah.
H1N1 is the swine flu. Where's the...
It's the No Agenda Swine Flu Minute.
If I'd known
That's
that,
no
I
idea.
played the jingle.
Well, this is Canada, so they're not pushing that meme. And maybe that has something to do with it. Bird flu is H5N1.
Yeah, I remember getting swine flu when I was in San Francisco.
What did it cost?
Yeah, I just remember being in bed for a couple days. I stopped smoking, and I was good. I'm still here.
Did you take Tamiflu?
No. I even knew you at the time. You didn't even offer it to me. Just let me suffer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, buddy.
I don't remember this. This is a new story.
Microservices architecture, moving right along. Your speciality, your beat.
My complaint.
Your complaints, but also your beat. CenturyLink, the CenturyLink 911 network call outage. Did you look into this? Did you find out what this was?
Yeah, it was some sort of network card that blew up. It was just a hardware failure.
Oh, really?
Like with anything else in a microservices architected environment, one thing goes out, there's more than one or two single points of failure. And, it doesn't have to be. You can have redundancy if you were, but no. Why bother?
I was able
Whatever happened to the checksum? What happened to CRC? There were all these things that used to have memories. I remember when the IBM PC came out, you could buy cheap memory, which had all the bits, and then there was the more expensive memory that had a little extra chip, a parity chip, to make sure that the memory was doing its thing and it was accurate. You had the parity chip. Cost too much. Well, they work 90% of the time. Who cares?
We don't. Oh, I didn't know anything about this. What does this magical chip do?
The magical chip, I think it can maintain. I'm not sure anymore. I used to know, but I think it maintains some like a checksum value for what was in the memory itself, and it would check against it
Right,
using a
and if it got
algorithm.
and if it got a different hash or a different checksum,
something, and then it was said, "Oh no, this is no good. This memory's gone bad." And then we don't have that anymore. There's no reason for it because it's like the failure rate is so low,
right,
with the way things are that you don't care, and so you just let these things slide. And I think that's what happened with this. Instead of having a backup, a redundant network card, I'm pretty sure it does what it was from what I read.
Yeah, it said one network
they just
card.
go, it's fine.
I was able to find a clip with someone in charge over there at CenturyLink.
For the first time since this outage, I was able to talk to someone from CenturyLink on camera just a short time ago. The bottom line here is that, well, yes, this system is back up and running. They still don't know exactly what went wrong, and they're trying to figure that out.
What are you doing to make sure something like this doesn't happen again?
Yeah, it's a great question.
That's not a great question.
So right now we feel very confident the system is stable, it's up and running, we don't anticipate any issues.
Days after a 911 outage in Washington caused 4,500 calls to fail, CenturyLink, the telecommunications company responsible, says they're narrowing in on the problem, but still can't tell us exactly what caused that 6-hour failure. They know the outage was due to a technical error in a third-party vendor's call router. But when I asked what that technical error was, they said they don't know.
So right now we need to break down every point of contact between the 911 center in Washington or centers and the CenturyLink data centers as well to make sure we've exactly found the reason for the outage and how are we going to fix it and prevent it in the future.
The Washington Emergency Management Division believes the 911 system is stable now, but it still wants assurances from CenturyLink something like this won't happen again.
The thing about this clip is from 2014. And they were fined $16 million for it. No one told you that, huh? Second time this has happened with these guys.
This is the problem with this microservices architecture, and he is probably right. I mean, I don't see how you get the thing back online without knowing what caused the problem.
I just can't believe that this is from 2014, and now we're 5 years later, and it happens again.
Exact same thing.
I'm sure it is the exact same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a single point of failure, and it failed again. It apparently works for 5 years.
Failed again.
Cranks away for 5 years, and it stops working. I mean, this happens if anyone has had nowadays we start to see the evidence of our hardware issues in the environment, because when in the late 70s, throughout the entire 80s, and then probably half of the 90s, we were buying brand new computers at the rate of about one every year and a half. So if you had a computer, you had to get a new one every year and a half to 2 years. 2 years was really keeping an old clunker alive,
right?
Because of all these new drivers and the new peripherals and all these other things. So you were buying, and the new chips made a difference. So you were buying in the 80s for sure. You were buying a new computer every year and a half. But since most recently, we don't. The failure, there's nothing happening that's so important that we got to get a new computer. It's the same old Microsoft Office. It's the same old Intel chips. You don't need to do anything. So you keep the machines longer. And now we're starting to see that they do crap out. After about 5 years, most computers, if you have one old 5-year-old computer, the likelihood of it blowing up is pretty high. And we're seeing that
actually
same
exploding, a real kinetic event.
It actually happened once on one of mine. A capacitor blew up, and it sounded like a bomb went off in the house.
A cap going will do it for you. Yeah, that'll do it.
But the point is that these machines don't last forever.
No. And I think Apple's going to start putting more of that not lasting forever into their new devices, because they got to do something. They got to get people upgrading. Well,
they're so slack on the Mac. They don't want to really. They're not doing enough work there, so they're not selling enough. And I think with the iPhone, it just breaks constantly. I think I don't know anyone without a broken one.
Well, you mean the glass?
Yeah.
That's the weakest part, or that's really their main thing. But I'm around a lot of millennials lately. Certainly in the Christmas break, they all got cracked screens. They don't care.
Yeah.
They're not replacing them. My screen's cracked. Maybe I'll go and get it fixed. Maybe not. As long as they can still see it. It's too expensive. Can't afford it.
I don't know. And the next phone I'm getting, because my phone is finally getting pretty
Yeah, which one do you have?
I still have a Nexus Galaxy.
Nice.
And the cool thing about it is you could take the back off and change the battery.
Yes.
But I think I'm going to get a Huawei.
Why don't you just go for the E71, the Nokia, like I have? It fits your image.
I think I already have one.
You probably do.
I have an original.
It's such a good phone.
Yeah, it was a good phone in its day.
It's still a great phone.
Yeah, it's got a nice keyboard.
It's got a great keyboard. We can go on like this forever. I've tried them all.
It's got a nice finish. It's pretty.
It does. I dropped it the other day, stepping out of the truck.
Yeah?
Yeah, nothing.
You had, no, of course not.
The phone went, that's all you got?
But you had an instance in your past where you dropped a phone in the toilet.
That was the very first iPhone.
Now,
that was the
if
first
you dropped
iPhone.
the E71 in the toilet, you think it would survive?
Hell yeah.
I don't know, with those buttons and the mechanics and that.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I've dropped E71s in the toilet before. I've dropped it in all kinds of stuff. It's an indestructible phone. You know, the Symbian OS has been open sourced. Someone could totally rejigger that for all kinds of different hardware.
I don't know why somebody hasn't.
Yeah.
I used to write columns about this. You know, when somebody abandons things, sometimes they can, sometimes they can't. I mean, with the OS2, I always thought should have been put into the public domain by IBM. But apparently there's some, the problem with doing that, there's some stuff that probably was like maybe shouldn't be in there, and when anyone's seeing it, who knows? But I think if you abandon a product, I think you should push it into the public domain because a lot of people may have been reliant on the product.
Yeah, Microsoft is doing a lot of that actually. They're a lot of their older stuff they're open sourcing.
DOS 6.
I'm telling you, Microsoft will run on Linux in our lifetime. Windows. It'll be Windows on top of Linux. I'm telling you. It's coming. It's coming.
It's possible.
Quick look in, this is now Act 8 of the Yellow Vests in France.
Oh, yes. We need to keep up with this.
Over the weekend, it has, it's not the same amount of people. It's only 50,000 across the country. The majority in Paris.
It's the Yellow Vest movement's first round of protests in 2019, and many say they're determined to continue all year. On Saturday, at least 50,000 protesters came out across France for the 8th straight week of demonstrations. Though the protests remained largely peaceful in the morning, clashes with authorities broke out in multiple cities early on into the evening. In central Paris, rioters torched cars and set barricades on fire. Elsewhere in the capital, protesters launched projectiles at police officers who responded with tear gas.
Now, you remember Macron in his New Year's address, we played the clip. He said, these are just the people who hate the Jews, they hate the LGBT, they just hate these horrible haters.
Though the scale of the protests has decreased in recent
Did you like my Macron? Was pretty good, huh?
weeks.
You sound like a Lebanese merchant.
Yellow Vests have vowed to continue mobilizing, saying the government's recent concessions are not enough.
We've been tightening our belts for 15, 20 years. We've had enough. We're still in an era of nobles and serfs in 2019.
We've had enough of being dragged around by those in power who look down on us, who look down on the people, who trample all over us. Of Macron, who says we're nothing, that we're a crowd full of hate, even though we've just shown that this demonstration was amazing, peaceful, that there was no trouble.
In response to Saturday's tensions, Interior Minister Christophe Castaner held an emergency crisis response meeting in the capital and urged protesters to respect the rule of law.
Now, I stand with the Yellow Vests, man. These guys are great. Those are patriots right there. Not giving up. Screw you. What do you say? We still live in the land of sirs and lords, yeah? I know.
The French can only put up with so much.
Yeah. And I know they won't quit. They will not quit. Good on them.
They probably won't quit, and which begs the question: what's going to happen?
Yeah, I don't know. It's not going to get prettier.
It's a thorn in the side of the EU. They're going to have to. I don't know. This is not going to work out as far as I can tell. bad things are going to happen.
All right, you got one last one to get us out of here? You got anything?
Well, first, before I get out of here, I did put an Amy ISO together. I wanted to play that so we can see if it's any good.
Yeah, I have this is what I was planning.
Thank you for your courage.
That's what I was planning as ISO of the day. Let's listen to Amy.
I actually had that one.
Oh, but it lost out to this one.
Which the Trump administration unilaterally pulled out of last year.
No, it's funny. But I like.
Well, they did unilaterally.
No. Nancy is much more pronounced.
You're right.
Nancy wins.
I've got a thing on the dairy industry being de-emphasized up in Canada, which is a big deal. There's another unreported thing. The Democracy Now! Report on the Iranians are sending satellites up, and they think it's like just a cheap trick to get their ballistic missile program together.
Space Force.
I got a Canadian perspective was always good of the shutdown.
Yeah.
Okay, go to dairy. Dairy's good.
We're doing dairy, people.
Here comes all those New Year's resolutions to eat healthier, and soon there will be a new Canada food guide to help you along. It's something lots of us probably learned about in school and then maybe took for granted, but Health Canada's been working on an overhaul. It's coming in a few months, and today we're getting an idea of what could change. Draft copy recommends Canadians eat a variety of healthy foods each day. Pretty straightforward, right? But potentially the biggest change, dairy products may disappear as their own food group, instead lumped in with proteins.
What? Don't put my dairy in my proteins, people. We love you.
Ketchup is a vegetable.
We love you guys up there. And that wraps it up for today's deconstruction. I'll be watching the Globes tonight, see if there's anything there, see if anyone's really funny. I have low expectations, but we will. Yeah.
We'll do a rundown.
Yeah, we'll return on Thursday, and we'll see if we can figure out what's going on with yous all. So thank you for participating in the Value Network. Value for Value is what we're about. Remember us at dvorak.org/NA. And I'm coming to you from downtown Austin, Texas. This is the capital of the Drone Star State. It's in FEMA Region number 6 if you're looking for it on the governmental maps. If you're looking for me, I'm in the 5x9 Cludio in the common law condo, and say in the morning to you, everybody, I'm Adam Curry.
And from northern Silicon Valley, where it is one of the few shows where it rained throughout the entire show. Unbelievable for California. We live in the desert. I'm John C. Dvorak.
And want to thank Tom Starkweather, Matt Bash, and Sir Chris Wilson for our end-of-show mixes. Until Thursday, adios, mofos! And such. I just have this vision of you sitting up there in your office on the hill, watching the trains go by.
There goes one now.
Marking it down in your little notebook.
I definitely in a little notebook.
Calling
send it into the
in
headquarters every once in a while.
Calling in complaints. It was late.
Well, I hear that zephyr coming. It's rolling round the bend. We've started no agenda. It's late again, so I write it in my notebook and call up to cook play. 'Cause I'm a closet foamer for service goats and trains.
Oh my God! Woo! Listen to that horn! Oh my God! Woo! Listen to that goat!
Some people must just be thinking, what the hell are these guys doing?
There are so many haters out there. Whatever's going on the internet, don't pay attention to them.
Everybody's putting out who's going to click on or who they're going to watch. We all know that's the case.
Yeah, they don't have a political bias other than cash.
Frustration.
The impression you get from the president that he would like to not only close government, build a wall, but also abolish Congress.
But once you get to like the Tippie-Tops.
National parks are getting a bit messy as they're operating on a skeleton staff with limited resources, a.k.a. no restrooms or trash collection.
Bathrooms are kind of a challenge, though.
Calm down. You don't have the answers, though. Calm down. Because you're trying to give me advice about something. You ain't got the answer.
Mr. Trump also told lawmakers he didn't like the word shutdown.
He has to give up a concrete wall and replace it with a steel fence in order to do that so that Democrats can say, see, he's not building a wall anymore.
Well, that I don't know. You'd have to ask her psychiatrist.
Because we're going to go in there, we're going to impeach them.
Mother Teresa,
you'll find that it's divine might, oh boy.
Told the president we needed the government open. He resisted. In fact, he said he'd keep the government closed for a very long period of time, months or even years.
I did say that. Absolutely, I said that. Because steel is stronger than concrete, okay? In case you could check it out.
Of no agenda, Adam's got the live stream set up. Light of the Valkyries playing, Fat Lady is radiating. Did the intro in the morning, hit it. But wait, there's something coming. Hey farmers, it's the Zephyr. Wrong time or late or early. John C. Dvorak tells us the status of the Zephyr. The Zephyr.
The best podcast in the universe.
Adios, mofo.
Dvorak.org/NA.
Thank you for your courage.